Chapter 3244. Golden-Eyed Saint. After all, the Temporal Temple was one of the three freedom alliances in the divine beginning world. They had always been united. So how could they allow the three saint realms to bully their own experts so unscrupulously? Therefore, in the Bloodwave realm, the three saint realms had only besieged Jian Wushuang for less than 10 days, but the Temporal Temple had already taken revenge on the three saint realms and killed the three principals masters of the Destruction Saint realm. They were principals masters, and they had killed three principals masters at once. Even the Destruction Saint realm's principles were painful. It's a good thing that the Temporal Temple is so tough. At least I don't have to worry about anything when I attack the three saint realms, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. Then he sent a message. Qian Hongzi, there's something I need your help with. What is it? Qian Hongzi asked. Although I want to find trouble with the three saint realms, I don't know where the experts of the three saint realms are. So, although Jian Wushuang did not finish his words, he had already made his intentions clear. I understand. Isn't it just finding the location of the experts of the three saint realms? That's easy. The Temporal Temple has a good relationship with many experts of the divine beginning realm. I'll send a message to Lord Hunyuan, and he will help you find their location, Qian Hongzi said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded, and then looked forward to it. The Temporal Temple was indeed very fast. In less than half a day, Lord Hunyuan personally sent a message to Jian Wushuang and told him the exact location of the experts of the Flame Saint Realm, one of the three saint realms. The Flame Saint Realm? Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. During the previous attack, the only expert from the Flame Saint Realm was Gu Xunzi. However, Gu Xunzi was not only a top-ranked expert on the True Saint list, but he also had a golden magic array that could seal time and space in an instant. If he had not mastered the move of time-space teleportation, he would have died in that attack. Therefore, Jian Wushuang was also full of killing intent toward the experts of the Flame Saint Realm. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang headed directly toward the experts of the Flame Saint Realm. In a corner of the central area of the Bloodwave realm, many experts of the Flame Saint Realm gathered together. Like the Destruction Saint Realm and the Life and Death Saint Realm, there were 10 people from the Flame Saint Realm who entered the Bloodwave realm. Among them, there were 3 invincible saints besides Gu Xunzi, an expert on the True Saint list. The other 6 were all extremely powerful peak saints. Junior Brother Golden-Eyed, how much of your divine power have you recovered? Gu Xunzi stood in front of a black-haired, golden-eyed young man and asked. Close to 50%, the black-haired, golden-eyed man replied. We will wait for another day. You should recover more than 70% of your divine power as soon as possible, Gu Xunzi said seriously. No problem. The black-haired, golden-eyed man nodded slightly. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. The golden-eyed saint was quite famous in the divine beginning realm. Although he was only a peak saint, his battle power was enough to fight against the invincible saint. Because he came from a special race, the Golden Crow race, he had some innate advantages. Moreover, his talent was extremely high. In terms of talent, he should be stronger than Gu Xunzi. It was just that he had not cultivated for a long time. Because of this, Gu Xunzi and the others took care of the golden-eyed saint. Not long ago, when the second Bloodwave token was born, the people of the Flame Saint Realm caught up in the battle. In that battle, they were almost able to keep the Bloodwave token. Unfortunately, the supreme emotion for getting Valley's Han Xian appeared in the end. She snatched the Bloodwave token first. On the way, Han Xian used an extremely terrifying technique, severely injuring the 3 people of the Flame Saint Realm in one go. Among them, the golden-eyed saint lost more than 70% of his divine power. He had almost died. Han Xin, from the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley. I don't know where this woman came from, but her technique is really amazing. Gu Zhenxi's eyes were cold. He could not help but recall the scene when Han Xin had used that ultimate technique. One had to know that Han Xin's technique had attacked 6 people at the same time. In the end, apart from Gu Zhenxi, the other 5 people's divine bodies had all collapsed, and 2 of them didn't belong to the flame realm. Visit Readel, me for extra chapters. If such a unique skill only worked on one person, it might even kill the invincible saint directly. What a terrifying woman. If I meet her again in the upcoming battle, I have to be careful, Gu Zhenxi muttered to himself. Fortunately, only 3 Bloodwave tokens have appeared. 1 was obtained by Master Ku, 1 fell into Han Xin's words, and the last one was unexpectedly obtained by Heavenly Sword Marquis. Heavenly Sword Marquis is really lucky. Although he knew that Jian Wushuang had a Bloodwave token, he did not have any thoughts about Jian Wushuang's life-saving ability. While the 10 people of the Flame Saint realm were quietly recovering their divine power, no one noticed that a figure had quietly appeared near them. The people of the Flame Saint realm are all here. Jian Wushuang used the shadowless escape art and hid in the surrounding void, looking at the 10 people in front of him. He had read the intelligence of the 10 people in the Flame Saint realm. Although they were all very strong, none of them were good at souls, so no one could find him in advance. It seems that they had a big battle not long ago and suffered some losses. 3 of them are not at the peak of their divine power aura, especially the one in the middle. Jian Wushuang's eyes were like torches. He looked directly at the black-haired, golden-eyed man in the middle. This person should be the golden-eyed saint. He is a top genius of the Flame Saint realm and was born in the Golden Crow clan. He is very talented. Although he is not very strong, his position in the Flame Saint realm is not inferior to Gu Zhenxi. Looking at the golden-eyed saint, the corners of Jian Wushuang's mouth curled up slightly. He wanted to take revenge on the 3 saint realms so that they would feel sorry for him. Killing a top genius like the golden-eyed saint was naturally more effective than killing other peak saints. Moreover, the golden-eyed saint was not in his peak condition, so killing him would be easier. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang directly approached the 10 people in front of him. Because they were in the center of the Bloodwave realm and surrounded by a large number of experts, the people of the Flame Saint realm were not too careless. They kept a close eye on their surroundings. If there was any movement around them, they would be startled awake instantly. However, they could not sense Jian Wushuang's shadowless escape skill at all. Without any obstruction, Jian Wushuang quietly appeared behind the golden-eyed saint. Then he revealed himself, and a blood-red sword light suddenly shot out. Blood-blade swordsmanship, blood drop, first move. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3245, Frontal Assassination _1. Jian Wushuang suddenly attacked. The golden-eyed saint and the other experts of the Flame Saint realm did not notice him at all. However, Gu Zhenxi, who was the core member of the 10-man team, narrowed his eyes. There's killing intent. Be careful. Gu Zhenxi immediately shouted. The people of the Flame Saint realm were also startled, and so was the golden-eyed saint. However, by the time the golden-eyed saint reacted, it was already too late. The blood-colored sword light that contained a terrifying power instantly pierced through the golden-eyed saint's divine body. Then, the power suddenly erupted, together with the 3 drops of cold blood poison. It instantly destroyed 50% of the golden-eyed saint's remaining divine power. It was completely annihilated. The golden-eyed saint's eyes were wide open, and they were filled with terror. He could already feel his life force fading away. Am I going to die? This was the golden-eyed saint's last thought. He withdrew his sword, and the golden-eyed saint's voice was completely cut off. The Flame Saint Realm's top genius, whose status was comparable to Guzensi's, had died just like that. This scene was also witnessed by the remaining 9 people of the Flame Saint Realm. When they saw the golden-eyed saint being killed, they were instantly shocked and furious. Golden-eyed junior brother. Guzensi's eyes turned scarlet. Before entering the Blood Wave realm, the highest level of the Flame Saint realm had warned him to take good care of the golden-eyed saint. After all, the golden-eyed saint's talent was obvious, and he was from the Golden Crow clan. This time, he would enter the Blood Wave realm. It was only for training, and he did not want to obtain the final opportunity. But now, the golden-eyed saint had been killed right under his nose. Guzensi's body trembled, and his scarlet eyes instantly locked onto the figure who had ambushed the golden-eyed saint. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Guzensi's teeth were chattering. In fact, even without seeing Jian Wushuang's face, he had already guessed that he was the one who had attacked. Jian Wushuang, who had mastered the shadowless escape art, was probably the only person in the entire Blood Wave realm who could silently appear beside them and perform a fatal attack on the golden-eyed saint without them noticing. Guzensi, long time no see. How have you been? Jian Wushuang stood in the void where the golden-eyed saint had died and looked at Guzensi with interest. Although he was surrounded by 9 people from the Flame Saint realm, he did not care at all, but he did not seem to care. Heavenly Sword Marquis, how dare you kill my golden-eyed junior brother? Guzensi looked at Jian Wushuang. His eyes seemed to spit fire. Around the other 8 flame of the Sanctum of the Strong are also furious. Haha, don't get me wrong. I don't want to kill just one golden-eyed saint, but all of you... Jian Wushuang smiled strangely and disappeared again in front of the 9 people. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. Oh no. Guzensi's face suddenly changed. Heavenly Sword Marquis escape art is very strange. Without an expert who specializes in soul, we can't sense his location. If we fight with him, we will only become his living targets. Be careful of the surroundings. Don't separate. 2 or 3 people gather together. Don't give him the chance to sneak attack you from behind or from both sides. Guzensi's low voice resounded across the sky. The people of the Flame Saint realm were not stupid. They immediately gathered, as Guzensi said. There were 9 of them in total. At this moment, they gathered in a triangular formation of 3 people, so that they did not have to worry about Jian Wushuang suddenly appearing behind them or on either side. Jian Wushuang could only attack them from the front. If Jian Wushuang attacked them from the front, they would be able to react the moment their bodies were revealed. Then, they would naturally be able to block Jian Wushuang's attack from the front. After all, most assassins attack from the back without the slightest reaction from their opponents. However, if an assassin attacked from the front, the chances of success would naturally not be so great. Haha, you are quite smart. Jian Wushuang hid in the surrounding void and looked at the 9 people of the Flame Saint realm gathering in groups of 3. He could not help but smile in his heart. Guzensi's first response to his sneak attack was indeed good. He was not an expert in the soul realm. If he had not mastered the bloody sword skill before, he would not have been able to deal with the 9 people of the Flame Saint realm. Unfortunately, he was no longer as strong as before. Do you think I can't succeed in a frontal attack? What a joke. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. His figure suddenly flashed, and he appeared in front of a saint at the peak of the Flame Saint realm. This saint was a burly middle-aged man with a huge axe in his hand. He was fully focused, and on guard. Visit Readle me for extra chapters. Buzz. When Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the burly middle-aged man, the burly middle-aged man immediately reacted. As soon as Jian Wushuang appeared, the Blood Mountain sword turned into a blood-red stream of light and pierced toward his heart. "Get lost!" the burly middle-aged man shouted and swung the huge axe in his hand. The huge axe was so powerful that if it hit the Blood Mountain sword, it would be enough to force Jian Wushuang back. However, what? The burly middle-aged man suddenly widened his eyes because he found that the blood-red flowing light was too fast. It was faster than he had imagined. The moment he swung the axe, the blood-red flowing light brushed past his axe and directly hit his divine body. The burly middle-aged man's divine body immediately suffered a huge impact. Although his divine body did not completely collapse, it had already collapsed by 80% and consumed nearly 40% of his divine power. After this sword attack, Jian Wushuang disappeared again. His axe attack did not have any effect at all. I can't block it. I can't block his swordsmanship. His swordsmanship is too fast. The burly middle-aged man shouted at the first moment. How could it be? When Gu Zhenzi and the others heard this, their faces were extremely unsightly. Since they could not find Jian Wushuang at all and could only become living targets, the best way to deal with Jian Wushuang was for the three of them to form a triangle. Next, they only needed to send a message to an expert who was good at soul to deal with Jian Wushuang. But who would have thought that they would not be able to withstand Jian Wushuang's direct attack? No. A terrified roar sounded again. Another peak saint in the Flame Saint realm was pierced through by Jian Wushuang's attack, and his divine body collapsed. Although the peak saint's divine body was quickly restored, more than 60% of his divine power was consumed in an instant. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3246, published at 2nd of March, 2022, 3 o'clock and 15 seconds a.m. Chapter 3246. 3246, Chapter 3246. Fleeing in a sorry state, his sword technique is too terrifying. The peak saint whose divine body had just been reassembled had a terrified expression on his face. His mind was also recalling the scene just now, the sword that had suddenly stabbed out. He had clearly seen his opponent's sword, but he still had not been able to block that sword technique. In an instant, his divine body had been destroyed by his opponent. More than 60% of my divine power has been consumed. If I use another sword attack, the peak saint thought. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang, who had disappeared, reappeared in front of him. The same sword light came at him from the same direction. It's over. This thought arose in the heart of the peak saint. In the next moment, his divine body was destroyed again. This time, his remaining divine power was also destroyed, and his life was immediately cut off. In just a moment, another peak saint in the camp of the Flame Saint realm died under Jian Wushuang's sword. Junior Brother Qing. Everyone in the Flame Saint realm, including Gu Zhenzi, had a drastic change in expression. Previously, they were completely unprepared when Jian Wushuang killed the gold-eyed saint. But now, they had already made a response, but Jian Wushuang still easily killed a peak saint. This scene, it made the remaining 8 people in the Flame Saint realm panic. We can't let him continue his unscrupulous assassination. Otherwise, at least half of us will die at his hands. We must think of a countermeasure immediately. Gu Zhenzi thought quickly and thought of a countermeasure. However, facing Jian Wushuang's terrifying assassination ability, he really could not think of any solution. Even if he wanted to invite an expert who was good at soul, it would be too late. There's no way. Without the help of an expert who is good at soul, we will only be passively beaten and constantly assassinated by Heavenly Sword Marquis. Moreover, there are only a few of us who can block his assassination. If this continues, all the peak saints in the Flame Saint realm, except for a few invincible saints, will probably die here. Thinking of this, Gu Zhenzi's face darkened, and he immediately made a decision. Run! Everyone, scatter and run! Gu Zhenzi shouted. Hearing this shout, the remaining experts of the Flame Saint realm were stunned. Run! Or scatter and run! Indeed, if they scattered and ran now, Jian Wushuang would not be able to split up, no matter how powerful he was. At most, he could only chase after one person, and Gu Zhenzi could also follow him to protect that person. This was indeed enough to deal with Jian Wushuang's crazy assassination. However, the 10-man camp of the Flame Saint realm had always been able to run amok in the Blood Wave realm. When ordinary experts saw them, they would usually avoid them in advance. They did not dare to provoke them at all. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novelful. Thanks. Moreover, with their lineup, even if they encountered the top experts on the True Saint list, such as the Light King or the Heavenly Devil Son, they would still be able to retreat calmly even if they could not defeat them. But now, their 10-man team, just because they met the Heavenly Sword Marquis, a rank 7 True Saint who did not even have the strength of the True Saint list, they could only choose to scatter and flee in a sorry state. How could they be willing to do this? How could they be willing? A mere rank 7 True Saint had forced them to flee in such a sorry state. If this were to spread out, how would they lose face? It was as if they could see through everyone's thoughts. Gu Zhenzi shouted again, "At this time, there's no need to worry about face. Survival is more important. Everyone, listen to me and scatter. Junior Brother Kong, join hands with me and think of a way to stop Heavenly Sword Marquis." "Okay," a tall, simple-looking man more than 2 meters tall replied, and immediately rushed toward Gu Zhenzi. Although the other 6 people of the Flame Saint realm were somewhat unwilling, they were more fearful of Jian Wushuang's assassination ability. At this moment, they did not hesitate and fled in all directions. They actually chose to flee in different directions. Jian Wushuang could not help being surprised when he saw this scene, but after thinking about it carefully, he felt relieved. Visit Re-Adel, me for extra chapters. Indeed, in the current situation, if the experts of the Flame Saint realm did not flee in different directions, they would only be killed by him one by one. When the experts who specialized in souls arrived, he could kill at least 2 or 3 more people. But now, if the experts of the Flame Saint realm chose to flee in different directions, he could only kill 1 more person. Moreover, with Gu Zhenzi and Kong blocking him, it was different whether he could kill 1 more person. Gu Zhenzi and Kong. Gu Zhenzi is ranked at the top of the True Saint list. Naturally, he is not afraid of my assassination. Kong is also a famous invincible saint. Not only is he very strong, he is close to the True Saint list. His life-saving ability is also very powerful. I can't do anything to him either. They can stop me at ease. I can only choose one of the 6 fleeing people to kill. Jian Wushuang, who was hiding in the void, narrowed his eyes. In the next moment, he went after one of the 6 people. Even if he went after them, he also used the shadowless escape art. Gu Zhenzi and Kong still did not know Jian Wushuang's movements. If I'm not mistaken, Heavenly Sword Marquis must have chosen one person to go after him. Gu Zhenzi said in a deep voice. I see, but which one of the 6 did he choose? Kong frowned. Among the 6, there are 2 invincible saints. I don't think the Heavenly Sword Marquis would dare to go after them. As for the remaining 4 peak saints, Junior Sister Yes' ability to survive is relatively weak. Junior Brother Ape King was seriously injured by him just now, and his divine power has been greatly depleted. The 2 of them are relatively easy to kill. The Heavenly Sword Marquis might have chosen one of them to go after them. Gu Zhenxi's eyes were cold. Junior apprentice brother Kong. I'll go to junior apprentice sister Yes place. You go to junior apprentice brother Ape King's place. Remember, no matter what, we must not let this heavenly sword Marquis kill another one of us. All right. The honest man Kong nodded heavily. Immediately, he and Gu Zhenxi respectively headed in the direction where junior apprentice sister Yu and Ape King were fleeing. At the same time that Gu Zhenxi and Kong left this piece of void, there were some figures standing in the void not far away. The 10 people of the Flame Saint realm were in the central area of the Blood Wave realm. Many experts of the Blood Wave realm were gathered here. Although this place was relatively remote, there were still some cultivators around. When Jian Wushuang attacked the Flame Saint realm, the surrounding experts naturally noticed it. They also saw the result of this battle. After seeing this battle, most of them were stunned. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3247, The Target Editor. Hey, did you guys see what happened just now? A skinny elder with black hair asked, in astonishment. Of course we saw it, a purple-robed woman said in shock. He single-handedly forced the 10 experts of the Flame Saint realm to flee in all directions. This heavenly sword Marquis is really something. He is indeed powerful, especially with his assassination methods. Without an expert who specializes in the soul present, Heavenly Sword Marquis could kill the experts of the Flame Saint realm one by one without any scruples. The people of the Flame Saint realm reacted quickly and knew that they had to flee in all directions. If they didn't flee, several more people would definitely die. This is the Flame Sanctum. Gu Zhenxi, Kong, which one of them isn't a famous expert. With their lineup, they could do whatever they wanted in the Blood Wave realm. But in the end, they were forced to such a state by Heavenly Sword Marquis alone. Thanks. And it seems that the Heavenly Sword Marquis hasn't given up yet. He's still chasing after the people of the Flame Saint realm. I wonder if the person he's targeting will be able to survive from his hands. The experts who saw the scene just now were all sighing. In the vast void, a figure was flying forward at high speed. While flying, he kept turning his head to look behind him, but he did not see a single person. Heavenly Sword Marquis must have gone to kill others, the long-haired man with a hooked nose muttered to himself. He thought so not because he did not see Jian Wushuang, but mainly because he was confident in his own strength. Among the 6 people in the Flame Saint realm, Gu Zhenxi and Kong could easily face Jian Wushuang. Besides them, there were 2 other invincible saints, including this man with a hooked nose. As an invincible saint, he had a good life-saving ability. He believed that Heavenly Sword Marquis should not be so stupid as to target him. After all, he was not so easy to kill. However, the hawk-nosed man did not know that Jian Wushuang was following him closely, not far behind him. That was right. When the 6 people of the Flame Saint realm were fleeing in different directions, the hawk-nosed man was Jian Wushuang's first target. He wanted to kill the invincible saint. Lan Ying, one of the invincible saints of the Flame Saint realm, is very powerful. During the battle for the 2nd Blood Wave token a few days ago, he fought with an expert who ranked lower on the True Saint list. Although he was suppressed, he could not defeat him in a short time. In terms of strength, although Lan Ying is not as strong as the expert on the True Saint list, he is still a very powerful existence among the invincible saints. Moreover, he is both offense and defense. His attack power is very strong, and his body protection ability is also very good. However, his weakness is also very obvious. He is not good at speed. Jian Wushuang knew the information about Lan Ying like the back of his hand. At this moment, he could not help but smile. Gu Zhenzi Kong and Lan Ying did not expect that he would target Jian Wushuang, because Lan Ying was very strong and difficult to deal with. However, Jian Wushuang had to do the opposite. He is strong, but his speed is too slow. If I want to assassinate him, he will be treated as a living target. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold, and he immediately approached Lan Ying. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBox Novel. Thanks. Lan Ying seemed to be completely sure that Jian Wushuang would not find him, so he stopped and did not move forward. However, at the moment when Lan Ying relaxed, Jian Wushuang had already made his move. He quietly appeared behind Lan Ying. Without the latter noticing, Jian Wushuang had already made his move. I wonder who the Heavenly Sword Marquis is targeting. I hope Gu Zhenzi and Senior Brother Kong can stop him. We've already lost 2 people in this encounter with the Heavenly Sword Marquis. If he kills another one, the losses will be too great. Lan Ying sighed softly. However, the blood-red sword light behind him was less than a meter away from him. At this moment, Lan Ying suddenly woke up. This killing intent is from Heavenly Sword Marquis. Lan Ying reacted, but he did not even have time to turn around, let alone block Jian Wushuang's sword. He could only let the blood-red sword light stab at his divine body. However, just as the blood-red sword light was about to touch his divine body, a layer of blue crystal immediately appeared on the surface of his body. The blue crystal instantly covered his entire body. When the blood-red sword light pierced the blue crystal, a terrifying power suddenly erupted. The shocking power contained in the sword immediately penetrated the blue crystal. However, the sword light was immediately blocked by the protective armor that Lan Ying was wearing. Whoosh! The power of the sword light was completely exhausted, but it did not penetrate the protective armor. It only left a clear white mark on the armor. At this moment, Lan Ying suddenly turned around and stared at Jian Wushuang with his eyes that seemed to spew flames. "How dare you chase after me? How dare you?" Lan Ying's shocked and angry voice resounded in the sky. A blood-red long stick rushed toward Jian Wushuang in an instant. Jian Wushuang frowned and immediately retreated. In the next moment, he disappeared in front of Lan Ying again. "Humph, coward!" Lan Ying cursed. Jian Wushuang, who had hidden in the surrounding void, looked at the white mark on Lan Ying's protective armor and sensed the divine power aura on Lan Ying's body. His eyes narrowed. Lan Ying is really like the information. He is both offensive and defensive. Not only is his attack powerful, but his protective ability is also very strong. I just used the first move of blood drop to pierce his divine body without any hindrance, but it still failed to pierce through his protective armor, so I can't seriously injure him at the first moment. Jian Wushuang was also a little surprised. Although he did not injure Lan Ying immediately, judging from the latter's divine power aura, it seemed that Lan Ying had used up some of his divine power. Obviously, although the attack did not pierce through the armor, the terrifying power contained in the sword still penetrated through the protective armor and entered Lan Ying's body. It caused some damage to his divine body, and also caused Lan Ying to use up some of his divine power. Although it did not consume much divine power, which was estimated to be only 1/40th of his entire divine power, it still gave Jian Wushuang hope of killing Lan Ying. I deliberately followed Lan Ying for a period of time and waited until I was far away from the battlefield. Now, Lan Ying is a certain distance away from Gu Zhenzi and the empty place. It will take them some time to get here. During this time, I must kill Lan Ying. Jian Wushuang's eyes revealed a shocking killing intent. In the next moment, endless power of ice and fire swept out. Chapter 3248. Chapter 3248. Kill Lanning underscore a large amount of ice and firepower combined together and pressed down on Lanning in all directions. Even with Lan Ying's strength, he was greatly suppressed at this moment. A domain-type treasure, and it's of a very high level. Lan Ying's eyes were cold. Humph! So what if I have a domain-type treasure? Even if I'm standing here, you're not qualified to kill me. Is that so? Jian Wushuang smiled coldly and directly attacked. Swish! The blood-red sword light flashed again. When Lanning was close to him, he could no longer block the sword. However, he was already prepared. He did not want to wave the long stick in his hand to block Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship. Instead, he fully exerted his protective ability. His body was covered with a thick layer of blue crystal. The blue crystal was extremely sturdy and covered his entire body like a piece of armor. Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship attacked him. First, he had to face the obstacle of the blue crystal. Inside the blue crystal, Lan Ying was still wearing a body protection armor, which was a top-notch holy treasure. In addition, he had cultivated a body-refining secret skill and had a powerful divine body. Because of this, he was very confident in his protective skills. Clang! The sword light attacked. Although it penetrated the outer layer of the blue crystal, when it hit the protective armor that Lan Ying was wearing, it made a sound like metal colliding. Jian Wushuang's sword still failed to break through the defense of Lan Ying's body, so the damage to Lan Ying was limited. Ha ha! Heavenly Sword Marquis, your assassination skills are very good, but your strength is too weak. Your swordsmanship is just scratching my divine body, Lan Ying sneered. Scratching? Then I'll scratch you a little longer. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly and then attacked again. Even without the suppression of the realm, Lan Ying could hardly resist Jian Wushuang's attacks, let alone being suppressed by the ice-fire swimming dragon ruler. His speed was greatly reduced, and he had no chance to fight back. He could only rely on his body protection to withstand Jian Wushuang's attacks again and again. Although Jian Wushuang's attacks could not penetrate the surface of his body, his divine body was also damaged by the repeated attacks. Naturally, his divine power was also being consumed. In just a short while, Jian Wushuang had already attacked nearly 10 times. Even if Lan Ying immediately swallowed some elixirs to recover his divine power, he had already consumed more than 10% of his divine power. Rat! How dare you fight me face to face? Lan Ying was furious. Face to face. Ha! I'm not as stupid as you. Jian Wushuang sneered, but his hands did not stop moving. Lan Ying's face was extremely ugly. At the same time, he had sent a message to Gu Xinzi and Kong, telling them to come over immediately. When Gu Xinzi and Kong found out that Jian Wushuang's target was Lan Ying, they were both shocked. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. How dare Heavenly Sword Marquis? Instead of looking for the Four Peak Saints, he found Lan Ying, who has excellent body protection ability. Does he want to assassinate an invincible saint with excellent body protection ability? Gu Xinzi and Kong were both shocked and angry. Don't worry about it. Since Heavenly Sword Marquis has his eyes on junior brother Lan Ying, it's better than the others. With junior brother Lan Ying's strength, Heavenly Sword Marquis can't do anything to him in a short time. Let's hurry over, Gu Xinzi said. Immediately, Gu Xinzi and Kong rushed toward Jian Wushuang and Lan Ying as fast as they could. In the vast void, Lan Ying, who was covered in a layer of blue crystals, stood in the center. At this moment, he had become Jian Wushuang's living target. As Jian Wushuang attacked again and again, he had no ability to resist. He could only rely on his powerful body protection to hold on. However, his divine power continued to be consumed. As time passed, Lan Ying's divine power became less and less. 80%, 70%, 50%. Visit Re-Adel, me for extra chapters. When Lan Ning only had 30% of his divine power left, he finally panicked. I only have 30% of my divine power left. I can't hold on much longer. Why aren't Gu Zhenzi and Kong here yet? Lan Ning was very nervous. He was nervous, but Jian Wushuang was still focused on killing him, constantly causing him harm. Sword after sword, Jian Wushuang kept attacking him. Each sword was a drop of blood move. In fact, he had been using shadowless escape art since the beginning, and now he was using the drop of blood sword art to kill again and again. If it were anyone else, they would have used up most of their divine power before killing Lan Ning, but Jian Wushuang was different. His own divine power was vast, and all the immortal saints in the divine beginning realm could only look up to him. For an assassination like this, the consumption of his divine power was insignificant. He could continue to kill without restraint. But Lan Ning obviously could not hold on for long. 30% of his divine power was gradually reduced to 20%, or even less than 20%. Still not coming. Still not coming. Lan Ning roared crazily in his heart, and a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. At this time, he did not put all his hopes on Gu Zhenzi and Kong. He was also trying to find a way to escape. However, his speed was far inferior to Jian Wushuang's, and the latter would not give him a chance to escape. His divine power was becoming less and less, and he even had only 10% left. At this time, Gu Zhenzi and Kong finally appeared in his sight. Finally, Lan Ning was overjoyed. Jian Wushuang, who was hiding in the void, also saw Gu Zhenzi and Kong. Along with them was a black-robed elder with messy hair. The black-robed elder's eyes were flickering with strange flames. He also exuded an evil aura. This person doesn't ring a bell. However, he has a very strong soul fluctuation. It seems that he is an expert who specializes in soul and an invincible saint. Jian Wushuang frowned. He also understood why Gu Zhenzi and Kong were slow to arrive. It seemed that they had tried to rope in the black-robed elder. After all, in the face of his assassination, without an expert who specialized in soul, it was indeed too passive. Sorry to trouble you. Jian Wushuang narrowed, his eyes slightly. He had wanted to kill Lan Ning before Gu Zhenzi and Kong arrived, but he did not expect that Lan Ying's protective ability was much stronger than he had imagined. Now that Gu Zhenzi and Kong had arrived with an invincible expert who specialized in the soul present, it was obviously very difficult for him to kill Lan Ning again. However, if you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3249. Chapter 3249. Must die. The three Saint Realms have been fighting with me for a long time. There is absolutely no way to resolve it. However, they are, after all, the three supreme overlords of the divine beginning realm in the outside world. Unless I break through to become a rule master and become strong enough to be feared by the three Saint Realms, it will be difficult for me to find an opportunity like this again. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. This opportunity was indeed a once-in-lifetime opportunity for him. After all, this was the Bloodwave realm, a place where the principal's masters could not enter. He could walk unhindered here, and was absolutely invincible. Here, he was not afraid of the three great Saint Realm coming to kill him. Instead, the experts of the three great Saint Realms should be worried that he would take the initiative to look for trouble. After all, the people who entered the Bloodwave realm from the three great Saint Realms were all geniuses. Many of them had the opportunity to become principal's masters in the future. If he could severely injure the geniuses of the three Saint Realms in the Bloodwave realm, even the three Saint Realms would feel distressed. I have been in conflict with the three Saint Realms for a long time. It's not the first time that the three Saint Realms have come to kill me, but I have been passively running for my life. I only want to survive. But this time, the once-in-lifetime opportunity is in front of me. I have the opportunity to kill the experts of the three Saint Realms without any scruples. How could I miss such an opportunity? Jian Wushuang's eyes were slightly red. Lanning must die. Even if Gu Xinzi and Kong are here, and there is an invincible saint who specializes in soul, I will kill him. Jian Wushuang had made up his mind. The moment Lanning approached Gu Xinzi and Kong, he also made his move. He is there. The evil-looking black-clothed elder let out a hoarse voice and pointed at the void, not far behind Lanning. Gu Xinzi and Kong instantly locked onto him. You still want to kill me? You're courting death. Gu Sensi's eyes seemed to spit fire. His speed suddenly increased. Like a golden beam of light, he instantly appeared behind Lanning. Then, a large amount of golden light spread out like a huge golden sun. Gu Sensi's entire body also became glittering with golden light. He was like a golden divine god. With him blocking in front of Lanning, he believed that Jian Wushuang would definitely not be able to break through. However, at this moment, Jian Wushuang directly revealed himself and attacked. He did not intend to use the shadowless escape art to bypass Gu Xinzi. Instead, he directly waved his sword in front of Gu Xinzi. Moreover, he was very slow, as if he was casually waving his sword. Ridiculous! Gu Xinzi was full of disdain for the sword that Jian Wushuang was about to swing. However, the moment Jian Wushuang swung his sword, buzz, a strong pressure from the life level suddenly came. This pressure ignored the strength of both sides, and the realm level. This was the pressure from the origin of life. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. There was no way to resist this pressure. How is this possible? Gu Sensi's eyes were wide open, and he was completely stunned by this supreme life-level pressure. At this moment, he looked at Jian Wushuang as if he saw the supreme and omnipotent Saint Master of the Flame Saint Realm. Terrified, trembling, terrified, he could not help but want to kneel down. He was completely stunned as he watched Jian Wushuang's sword strike directly toward his head. Bang! With a loud sound, the golden light on Gu Sensi's body instantly dimmed, and his golden divine body was directly split into two by the ordinary sword light. His divine body collapsed on the spot, and even his divine power was evaporated. More than 80% of it was evaporated at this moment. Yes, that was 80%. Visit Readle, me for extra chapters. One sword attack caused him, an expert ranked near the top of the True Saint list, to lose 8 layers of divine power. Moreover, the power of this sword attack did not disappear just like that. Instead, it carried a shocking power and continued to slash at Lanning behind Gu Xinzi. Even Gu Xinzi was unable to block this sword attack head-on. Lanning, who only had 10% of his divine power left, had no room to struggle under this sword attack. He did not even have the time to scream before he was annihilated by the sword light. The remaining divine power was annihilated on the spot, and his life was instantly cut off. It was only at this moment that the sword light completely dissipated. Buzz. Gu Sensi's divine body was reassembled, but after it was reassembled, his face was filled with fear. He stared at Jian Wushuang as if he was staring at a demon. Behind him, Kong and the black-clothed elder with an evil aura were also staring at Jian Wushuang in shock. Jian Wushuang's sword was so terrifying that he could kill Lanning after destroying Gu Sensi's divine body and 80% of his divine power. How is this possible? You, Gu Xinzi pointed at Jian Wushuang, not knowing what to say. As for Jian Wushuang himself, he looked very calm. He did not pay attention to Gu Xinzi, Kong, and the evil elder. Instead, he looked up at the blood-red sky. The blood-red sky was still very calm, and there was no movement. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang felt relieved. As I guessed, the blood wave realm is very special. Even the power of the will of heaven cannot touch it. I can use my most powerful trump cards in the blood wave realm. Jian Wushuang calmed down. He had cultivated until now, although he was not very strong, and any expert on the true saint list could easily suppress him. He had a lot of trump cards, like the shadowless escape skill and the assassination of the bloody sword skill, like the 6 paths of reincarnation secret skill, and the mountain and river map, which was a treasure. He had never used it. However, when it came to his trump card, his strongest trump card was not these things. Instead, it was the life-level pressure given by his perfect chaotic creature and the heaven-cleaving technique created by his master Xian. Ever since he had mastered the heaven-cleaving technique, he had only used it once. That was when he was in the Golden Crow 9 realms. When the supreme emotion-forgetting Valley wanted to take Lung Rushuang away, he was furious. At that time, he was in the supreme divinity realm. He directly used the heaven-cleaving skill to kill the group of immortal saints in the supreme emotion-forgetting Valley. However, once he used the heaven-cleaving skill, the power of the will of heaven descended and forced him to flee. Indeed, the heaven-cleaving skill and the power of the life level were his strongest trump cards. However, once he used this move, it would immediately attract the power of the will of heaven. Therefore, Jian Wushuang had been cautious when he was in the divine beginning realm. Until the last moment, he had never thought of using this trump card. But now, in the blood wave realm, Jian Wushuang had already guessed that the power of the will of heaven could not be involved here. After all, if the power of the will of heaven could be involved in the blood wave world, the 3 saint realms would certainly be able to involve their forces. They had long treated the blood wave realm as their own backyard, so they would not share it with the forces of the divine beginning realm. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3250. Perfect level? Because he had guessed this, Jian Wushuang dared to use the heaven-cleaving skill in the blood wave realm. Not only did he kill Lanning, but he also severely injured Gu Xinzi. Now that Lanning was dead, Jian Wushuang could not help looking at Gu Xinzi, Kong, and the evil elder. However, when Gu Xinzi noticed Jian Wushuang's gaze, it was as if he saw the smile of the Grim Reaper. His whole body trembled, and an unprecedented fear appeared in his eyes. "Run!" A roar came out of Gu Xinzi's mouth. Not only him, but also Kong and the evil elder had lost the courage to stay. They did not even dare to look directly at Jian Wushuang's goal. The 3 of them turned around and fled without hesitation. They even showed their fastest speed as they fled, afraid of being chased by Jian Wushuang. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them had disappeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was stunned by this scene, but he realized it after thinking about it. After all, he had just used the heaven-cleaving skill. After using it, he had severely injured Gu Xinzi and destroyed 80% of his divine power. Who was Gu Xinzi? He was an expert on the true saint list, and he had always been in the top 10. However, because of the sudden appearance of several experts in the blood wave realm, he was only ranked below the top 10. However, his battle strength was still extremely strong. Such an expert, no matter how strong he was, could hardly destroy his divine body in one move, let alone 80% of his divine power in one move. Gu Xinzi was indeed frightened by Jian Wushuang's sword attack. He could not care less about Lan Ying's death. He was worried about his own death, so he fled at once. Since Gu Xinzi was like this, Kong and the evil elder were even more terrified and had to flee. Gu Shunzi must have been scared out of his wits by my sword just now. However, I'm afraid he doesn't know that my sword just now was not easy to perform, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. The heaven-cleaving skill was his strongest trump card and also his most powerful skill. It was certainly not easy to perform it. When he was in the outside world, he had to take into account the power of the will of heaven and the experts of the three saint realms to perform this move in the Bloodwave realm. Although he did not have to care about the power of the will of heaven, it was still not easy for him to perform this move. After all, it was the most powerful magic power created by his master Xian Yi, who had combined the unique constitution of his perfect chaotic creature. Under normal circumstances, Jian Wushuang could only use this move easily when he reached the level of Principal's master. However, when he was at the level of the Immortal Saint, when he used this move, the burden on his divine body, divine power, and even his own consciousness was shocking. For example, although he had killed Lan Ying and severely injured Gu Zhenzi, he had used up 40% of his divine power. With his vast divine power, he had used up 40% of his divine power. It was obvious how much divine power this move had consumed. It was also a huge burden on his consciousness. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. It was already difficult for him to use such a trump card once, so it was impossible for him to use it again. However, Gu Shunzi did not know this. Although he had sensed that Jian Wushuang's divine power had been consumed, it was not too much. He thought that Jian Wushuang could use the sword again, so he immediately fled in panic. Unfortunately, my realm is still too low. The sword just now could only consume 80% of Gu Zhenzi's divine power. If I were stronger, I wouldn't need to be much stronger. As long as I reached the peak of the rank 7 True Saint, I would be able to kill Gu Zhenzi with that sword. Jian Wushuang felt it was a pity. How could he kill Gu Zhenzi, who was ranked at the top of the True Saint list, with one strike? Even the Light King could not do it. Even an ordinary Principal's master might not be able to do it. However, Jian Wushuang might be able to do it once he reached the peak of the rank 7 True Saint realm. It could not be helped. The heaven-cleaving skill was too terrifying. Moreover, Jian Wushuang was barely able to use the heaven-cleaving skill at the moment. The power he could unleash was probably only 1% of this divine ability. Only when he became a Principal's master and truly became a top expert would he be able to unleash this divine ability perfectly. He would have been able to pull it off perfectly. Visit Readle me for extra chapters. Although it's a little cold. In any case, this attack killed 3 experts of the Flame Saint realm, including the invincible Saint, Lan Ying, and severely injured Gu Zhenzi. He should spend the rest of the time recovering his divine power and won't be able to participate in the fight for the Bloodwave token. This is already very good. Jian Wushuang smiled. He was quite satisfied with his assassination. He let out a sigh of relief and soon left. While Jian Wushuang was using the heaven-splitting skill to severely wound Gu Zhenzi and kill Lan Ying, a huge palace stood quietly in the center of the Bloodwave realm. It was not only huge, but also extremely ancient. It also exuded an extremely ancient aura. The palace was surrounded by a layer of special magic formation that blocked everyone from entering. This palace was the Bloodwave Palace. Bloodwave Palace was the real opportunity of the Bloodwave realm. Many experts in the Bloodwave realm were desperately fighting for the Bloodwave token because it was the only ticket to enter the Bloodwave Palace. As long as one obtained the Bloodwave token and entered the Bloodwave realm, 99% of them could become the Principal's master. However, no one knew what secret the Bloodwave Palace had. In the deepest part of the Bloodwave Palace, in a dark void where there was no light at all, a consciousness that had been sleeping for an unknown number of years suddenly woke up. This ripple, it's a ripple of life force, and it's at the perfect level. An ancient and distant voice rang out from the very end of the dark void. It's been a very, very long time since I've seen a perfect level life form. The last time I saw one was a few chaos cycles ago, but this time I didn't expect it to be here. And this perfect level life form is only at the saint level. Interesting, this is too interesting. The voice carried a hint of surprise and melancholy as it slowly calmed down within the dark void. Not long after, the dark void once again descended into its usual deathly stillness. It was as though that strand of consciousness had never existed. Within Bloodwave Temple, it was as calm as ever. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3251. Avoid _ in the void. 3 figures fled in a sorry state for a long time before stopping. Deacon Yun, did Heavenly Sword Marquis catch up with us? Gu Zhenxi's voice was still filled with a trace of fear. No, the evil-looking black-clothed elder had been using his soul power to sense his back, but he did not discover Jian Wushuang's existence. That's good. Gu Zhenxi finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, he immediately thought of Jian Wushuang's terrifying sword attack. That sword attack had frightened him, suffocated him, and made him completely unable to resist. That sword attack was too terrifying. It felt even more terrifying than the full-strength attack of the Principal's master. Didn't they say that the power of the Principal's master was limited in the Bloodwave realm? But how could Heavenly Sword Marquis use such a terrifying technique? Moreover, he clearly has such an incredible trump card. Why didn't he use it when he was besieged by the 3 Saint Realms? Gu Zhenxi could not understand. He could not understand. What he did not know was that the Bloodwave realm restricted the power of Principal's masters and above. This was indeed the truth, but the restriction referred to the power interference of Principal's masters. For example, many people had some specially refined token or other means. For example, Jian Wushuang had the command talismans personally refined by the 2 palace masters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, which could be used to save his life. However, he could not use the 2 command talismans in the Bloodwave realm. However, if the immortal saint could exert the power of the Principal's master, he would not be restricted by the Bloodwave realm. After all, no matter how powerful the immortal saint was, he was only an immortal saint, not a Principal's master. Therefore, the power of Jian Wushuang's strongest trump card was not limited. As for why Jian Wushuang did not use this trump card before, it was easy to understand. After all, when he was surrounded and killed by the experts of the 3 Saint Realms, he was not as strong as he was now. At that time, he was only a rank 6 true saint. Even if he used the heaven-cleaving skill at all costs, the power he displayed was certainly not as terrifying as it was now. At that time, the Light King was also present, and he was from the 3 Saint Realms. If he had used the heaven-cleaving skill at that time, Jian Wushuang had no doubt that the Light King could have used his tyrannical strength to block him head-on. Since using the heaven-cleaving skill at that time would not change anything, there was no need for Jian Wushuang to use it. After all, it was not easy to use the heaven-cleaving skill. It's meaningless to talk about it now. In short, the strength and skills of Heavenly Sword Marquis are far beyond our imagination. If he keeps watching us, we will be in big trouble, Kong said in a low voice. Both Kong and Gu Zhenxi felt an unprecedented pressure when facing Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang gave them a terrifying feeling, not to mention his strongest trump card. His assassination skills alone made them helpless in the Flame Saint realm. The formation of 10 people, they could only flee in all directions after being killed by Jian Wushuang alone. If Jian Wushuang used his strongest trump card, even Gu Xinzi might die. The most terrifying thing was that Jian Wushuang was absolutely invincible in the Blood Wave realm. No one could do anything to him. With such an enemy surrounding them, Gu Xinzi and Kong felt terrified just thinking about it. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novelful. Thanks. There's nothing we can do. This Heavenly Sword Marquis is too terrifying. With our formation, we can't deal with him at all. We can only hide. We can only think of a way to avoid him. Gu Xinzi clenched his fists. Avoid him. Kong frowned. From now on, the Flame Saint Realm will try our best not to expose our tracks in front of others. We can't stay in a certain place either. Instead, we must keep moving around the central area of the Blood Wave realm so that the Heavenly Sword Marquis can't completely capture our position. In short, we can't let him find us. Gu Sensi's voice was low. In addition, Deacon Yun, from today onward, you will stay with us until everyone in the Flame Saint realm leaves the Blood Wave realm. Is that okay? Gu Xinzi looked at the evil elder. He was too afraid of Jian Wushuang's assassination ability. In the face of Jian Wushuang's assassination, if there was not an expert who specialized in the soul, they would be beaten up. I have received orders from the higher-ups of the Sorcerer God sect. This time in the Blood Wave realm, I will do my best to help everyone in the Flame Saint realm, the evil elder said. Thank you. Gu Xinzi nodded slightly. Then he said seriously, as long as we find a way to avoid Heavenly Sword Marquis and prevent him from finding us, he shouldn't be able to do anything to us. Moreover, his enemies in the Blood Wave realm are not only in the Flame Saint realm, but also in the Destruction Saint realm and the Life and Death Saint realm. If he can't find our exact location, he will probably go and find trouble with those two families. Although the three holy realms were closely related to the will of the heavenly Tao and had been fighting against the outside world, they were not one but three saint realms, and they were recognized as the overlords of the divine beginning realm. There was also competition among them. When Jian Wushuang took revenge on the Flame Saint realm, they naturally hoped that Jian Wushuang would find trouble with the other two saint realms and stop staring at the Flame Saint realm. Visit Readle me for extra chapters. In that case, let's do it. Kong nodded and agreed with Gu Xinzi. While Gu Xinzi and Kong were discussing, boom, the ground suddenly shook as if something was soaring into the sky. Then, the three of them immediately felt a special wave coming from nearby. This wave was extremely strong. Gu Xinzi, Kong, and Deacon Yun, the evil elder, felt the wave, and their pupils shrank. This fluctuation is the birth of the Blood Wave token. Yes, it's the birth of the Blood Wave token, and it's much bigger than the previous one we encountered. If I'm not wrong, it's not just one Blood Wave token, but two or even three. 2 or even 3 Blood Wave tokens are born at the same time, and they're close to us. Gu Xinzi, Kong, and Deacon Yun's eyes turned red. However, Gu Xinzi was the first to calm down after a short while. No, we can't fight for the Blood Wave token this time, Gu Xinzi said directly. What? Kong and Deacon Yun glanced at Gu Xinzi, but they also reacted in the next moment. Damn it! Why did the Blood Wave token appear at this time? Gu Xinzi cursed directly. We just escaped from the Heavenly Sword Marquis. The Heavenly Sword Marquis must have rushed to the Blood Wave token at this time. If we rush there now, wouldn't we be sending ourselves to his door again? Kong could only shake his head helplessly. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3252. Madness. The three of them had been scared out of their wits by Jian Wushuang's sword attack. Now, they did not dare to face him again. so they did not dare to participate in the fight for the Blood Wave token. Moreover, they were not in a good condition. The people of the Flame Saint realm were scattered by Jian Wushuang and had not gathered yet. Gu Zhenzi, who was the strongest, had lost 80% of his divine power by Jian Wushuang's sword attack. With only 20% of his divine power left, it was impossible for him to participate in this competition. They had no choice but to give up. Let's go. When I recover to my peak condition, we still have a chance to fight for the Blood Wave token. Gu Zhenzi said this, and the three of them quickly left. Just as they had expected, the Blood Wave token had created such a huge commotion that Jian Wushuang had sensed it immediately. Judging from the commotion, there should be at least 2 or even 3 Blood Wave tokens appearing at the same time. With so many Blood Wave tokens appearing at the same time, it will definitely attract more experts. Perhaps the Destruction Saint realm, the Life and Death Saint realm, and the Flame Saint realm. This is a good opportunity for me. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Then he immediately rushed to the place where the Blood Wave tokens had appeared. The Blood Wave realm had been open for nearly 40 days. During this time, 3 Blood Wave tokens had been born. These 3 had fallen into the hands of Master Ku, Han Xin, and Jian Wushuang, which made the experts who had not received the Blood Wave tokens anxious. After all, there were only 10 Blood Wave tokens, but there were too many people fighting for them. On the 39th day of the opening of the Blood Wave realm, a feast erupted near the territory where Jian Wushuang and the Flame Saint realm were fighting. 3 Blood Wave tokens appeared at the same time, and in the same place. The sudden explosion was so shocking that it attracted a large number of experts. When Jian Wushuang arrived at the place, there were already more than 100 experts fighting crazily for the 3 Blood Wave tokens. So many people, and they are so crazy. Even Jian Wushuang could not help looking at the scene in astonishment. There were more than 100 experts, the weakest of which was a peak saint. Among them, there were more than 10 invincible saints. They were fighting crazily. All of them just wanted to get the Blood Wave token. Regardless of who had it, they would immediately be surrounded and attacked by almost everyone. The surrounding space and time were also directly sealed. Those who had gotten the Blood Wave token earlier in the fight did not have the chance to escape immediately. In just a moment, they would be surrounded and killed by others. Jian Wushuang had only been familiar with the battlefield for a few short moments, but he had already seen 6 experts die. Among the 6 experts, 3 were peak saints, and the other 3 were invincible saints. They were both very weak. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novelful. Thanks. It was indeed difficult to kill an invincible saint in a one-on-one battle. However, if he was surrounded by dozens of experts in a chaotic battle, and he could not escape, he would die. The probability of dying was certainly not small. For example, the 3 invincible saints who had died now had obtained the Blood Wave token because of their own strength. However, they were killed in the next moment. In such a crazy battle, even if he got the Blood Wave token, he would not be able to leave with it immediately unless he was really strong enough to face dozens of experts. However, such an expert can only be on the True Saint list, and only those who are ranked high on the True Saint list can do so, Jian Wushuang muttered. He looked at the battlefield in front of him. There were already experts on the True Saint list, but the ranking of this expert was not high. As time passed, more and more experts rushed over. The fight between hundreds of experts had now turned into a frenzied fight. Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. He looked at the void in front of him and said, "Several people from the Temporal Temple have also arrived." In the void, not far away, the 5 members of the Temporal Temple, led by Di Hao, had also arrived at the battlefield. They soon joined in the frenzied battle. Visit Riedel, me for extra chapters. Not long after the Temporal Temple, the experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance also arrived. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had also sent 10 experts into the Blood Wave realm this time. Among them, the strongest was Saint Devil's Son. That's Saint Devil's Son. Ranked second on the True Saint list, Jian Wushuang stood at the edge of the battlefield and looked at a tall young man with purple skin in the middle of the battlefield. The young man's eyes were long and narrow, like gems. He held a black divine mace in his hand. The power contained in the black divine mace was enough to make an invincible saint tremble. The son of Saint Devil not only possessed several powerful secret techniques, but also had a high comprehension of principles. Most importantly, he was a special life form. Compared to ordinary experts, special life forms had a huge innate advantage. Just in terms of divine power, they were completely incomparable to ordinary invincible saints. He did not need to use any powerful techniques at all. Even a casual strike of the mace was not something an ordinary invincible saint could withstand. On the True Saint list, the Light King, who had merged two principles, was known as the strongest. However, in many people's hearts, the only person who had a chance of fighting against the Light King was the Saint Devil's Son. Now that Jian Wushuang had seen the Saint Devil's Son with his own eyes, he was indeed amazed by the latter's strength. As Saint Devil's Son entered the battlefield, he soon stood together with an expert on the True Saint list. The expert on the True Saint list was Shijun, who was currently ranked 16th. He was an expert with terrifying body protection ability. In terms of body protection ability alone, he could definitely be ranked in the top 3 on the True Saint list. In addition, he also had relatively strong offensive skills, which was why he was ranked 16th on the True Saint list. However, Shijun's luck was obviously not good. He had already grabbed a Blood Wave token during the chaotic battle and was about to leave. No one could stop him. He thought that he had the Blood Wave token in his hand. He did not expect that when he left, he would run into the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and the others who were rushing to the battlefield. He was immediately attacked by the Saint Devil's Son. Under the constant attacks of Saint Devil's Son's terrifying power, even Shijun felt immense pressure. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and the Temporal Temple have arrived. As for the Heavenly Ancestor Taoist sect, they have already obtained a Blood Wave token, so it's likely that they won't fight for it this time. The people from the 3 Saint realms should be arriving soon. Jian Wushuang muttered. The next moment, his eyes lit up. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3253. Beware of Heavenly Marquis Sword. They're coming. Jian Wushuang looked at the void not far away, where several figures were rushing over, led by Thunder God and Wan Xian. The Destruction Saint realm is coming. The Life and Death Saint realm is not slow. Jian Wushuang looked in another direction. The 10-man team of the Life and Death Saint realm appeared there, led by Silver Wolf. After the 2 teams of the Saint realm arrived, they immediately joined the battlefield and joined the feast. At this time, there were more than 600 experts participating in the feast. Among them, there were more than 70 invincible saints and more than 10 experts on the True Saint list. The Destruction Saint realm and the Life and Death Saint realm, which are far away from here, have arrived. However, the Flame Saint realm, which is nearby, hasn't arrived yet. Jian Wushuang had a strange look on his face, but he knew very well in his heart. Unsurprisingly, the Flame Saint realm was frightened by him. They knew that he would come to the feast, so they simply did not come. I just met the Flame Saint realm and used up nearly 50% of my divine power. I don't have enough divine power, so it's impossible for me to use it again. There's no rush. Anyway, I'm afraid that the fight won't end soon. It'll just wait here quietly, waiting for an opportunity while I slowly recover my divine power, Jian Wushuang said with a strange smile. The heaven-cleaving skill had consumed a lot of his divine power, although he was a perfect chaotic creature, and his divine power was recovering at an amazing speed. It would take him some time to recover 50% of his divine power. Even with the help of some elixirs, it would take him some time to recover to his peak. As for his Emperor's Destiny clone, his divine power had almost been used up when he was attacked by the 3 Saint Realms. It would not be easy for him to recover his divine power. His Emperor's life avatar had only recovered 10 to 20% of its divine power. It was not of much use to Jian Wushuang. Time passed slowly. The contest became more and more intense, and more experts died. Jian Wushuang had been hiding in the surrounding void to watch. It has been almost 15 minutes since I came here, but the contest still has no intention of ending. As for the experts who died, I have seen more than 50 of them, including 10 invincible saints. Thanks, this is crazy, Jian Wushuang secretly praised. But now, the 3 blood wave tokens were in the hands of 3 different people. These 3 people were experts on the true saint list and were extremely strong. Therefore, they could hold on for a long time even if they were besieged by many experts. The body protection ability of that Shijun is really amazing. He is facing the Saint Devil Sun head-on, and the people of the Destruction Saint Realm, led by Thunder God, seemed to have their eyes on the blood wave token in his hand and joined in the attack. But even now, the Shijun is still able to hold on. Jian Wushuang looked at the battlefield in the center. However, at this moment, Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. He noticed that there was a peak saint in the Destruction Saint Realm who had accidentally been hit by the divine rapier of the Holy Devil Sun. The power of the divine rapier was extremely terrifying. Even though the power of the rapier was only 1/10 of its original power, it still severely injured the peak saint and instantly consumed more than 70% of his divine power. Damn it! This peak saint's expression also changed drastically. Junior Brother Hung, you withdraw from the battlefield first. Thunder God glanced at this peak saint. This peak saint nodded. He didn't try to force himself and immediately rushed out of the battlefield. On the way, no one stopped him. Soon, he arrived outside the battlefield. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBox Novel. Thanks. Only when he arrived here did he heave a sigh of relief. Then he took out a medicinal elixir and planned to recover his divine power first. However, he did not notice that a phantom-like figure had quietly appeared on his body. This figure had appeared too suddenly and without a single sound. This peak saint of the Destruction Saint Realm did not notice it at all. Even though this figure had already stabbed out with the blood-colored longsword in his hand, this peak saint did not react at all. The result was Qi. The blood-red sword light easily penetrated the divine body of the peak saint of the Destruction Saint Realm. The terrifying power contained in the sword light also completely destroyed less than 30% of his divine power. The peak saint of the Destruction Saint Realm widened his eyes with a look of confusion and fear. He had no idea what had happened, but before he could even scream, his breath was completely cut off. The first one, Jian Wushuang, appeared in the void where the peak saint had fallen. Seeing his divine body completely collapse, a cold smile appeared on his face. Then he looked at the battlefield in front of him. The fight for the Bloodwave token was still going on, and the people of the Destruction Saint Realm were still fighting with Saint Devil Sun for the Bloodwave token under the leadership of Thunder God and Wan Xian. As for what was happening outside the battlefield, they did not notice it at all. The people of the Destruction Saint Realm did not know that their junior brother Hung, who had just left the battlefield, had been quietly killed by Jian Wushuang. Moreover, this was only the first person that Jian Wushuang had killed. As the battle became more and more crazy and intense, not only did the experts die, but more and more experts were severely injured during the period of caution. These severely injured experts would choose to leave the battlefield, when they had only 30 to 40% of their divine power left. This gave Jian Wushuang an even more perfect assassination condition. Long Xian, you retreat first. On the side of the life and death saint realm, a peak saint with only 40% of his divine power left also withdrew from the battlefield. However, as soon as he withdrew from the battlefield, he was immediately assassinated by Jian Wushuang and died on the spot. The second one, Jian Wushuang said with a cold smile. The third one. The fourth one. After 4 consecutive attacks, 4 experts from the Destruction Saint Realm and the Life and Death Saint Realm who had retreated from the battlefield died at Jian Wushuang's hands. Until Jian Wushuang's 5th attack. This time, Jian Wushuang's target was an invincible saint from the Life and Death Saint Realm who had just retreated from the battlefield. Because he was an invincible saint, Jian Wushuang was more cautious. He did his best and did not hold back at all. Even so, an accident still happened. Although his killing move pierced through the invincible saint's divine body, it did not destroy all the remaining divine power of the invincible saint in the first place. The invincible saint woke up in an instant. Assassinate! Someone is assassinating around the battlefield. It's Heavenly Sword Marquis. Everyone, be careful of Heavenly Sword Marquis. Chapter 3254. Assassination in a Chaotic Battle _ When Jian Wushuang discovered that the invincible saint still had some divine power left, he struck again with lightning speed. The blood-red sword light destroyed his remaining divine power with shocking power. However, the invincible saint's dying roar still spread. Assassination! Someone is trying to assassinate us. It's the Heavenly Sword Marquis. Everyone, be careful of the Heavenly Sword Marquis. The roar was hysterical and filled with endless fear. Even the heated battlefield could not stop the roar. The entire battlefield was in an uproar because of the roar. Assassination! Heavenly Sword Marquis! Many people on the battlefield were astonished, especially the experts of the 2 saint realms. To these experts of the 2 saint realms, the name Heavenly Sword Marquis was too ear-piercing. They also noticed the scene outside the battlefield. Heavenly Sword Marquis! Damn it, this bastard actually tried to assassinate our people outside the battlefield. The people of the 2 saint realms were shocked and furious, and the eyes of Thunder God and Silver Wolf turned red. Sensing the angry gazes, Jian Wushuang gave a strange smile and said, "Has he been exposed? But it doesn't matter. Since he has been exposed, I will assassinate him openly." With a flash, Jian Wushuang rushed toward the center of the battlefield. Although he had not recovered his divine power to its peak, he was still able to kill as many people as he wanted, even if he only had 50% to 60% of his divine power left. Watch out! Heavenly Sword Marquis is coming for us. Experts who are good at soul power, quick, lock on to Heavenly Sword Marquis position. There were too many experts fighting for the Bloodwave token. There were no less than 10 experts who were good at soul. They could lock on to Jian Wushuang's position in an instant, but they did not pay much attention to it. They did not pay too much attention to it, because everyone knew that Jian Wushuang's purpose was not for the Bloodwave token. After all, he had already obtained 1 Bloodwave token. Now, he rushed to the battlefield, thinking of his assassination outside the battlefield. Everyone immediately guessed that he was here for the 2 saint realms. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBoxNovel. Thanks. Be careful, be careful. Silver Wolf and Thunder God had already warned him, but they still underestimated Jian Wushuang's assassination methods. Having reached the rank 7 true Saint Realm and mastered the first move of Blood Drop, he could even kill an invincible saint. In this chaotic battle, the experts of the 2 Saint Realms were almost scattered. It was too easy for Jian Wushuang to assassinate them. Like a ghost, he first appeared beside the experts of the Destruction Saint Realm. The Destruction Saint Realm had lost 2 people in the first 2 encounters with the Temporal Temple. Among the 5 people killed by Jian Wushuang outside the battlefield, 2 of them were from the Destruction Saint Realm. Only 6 people were still alive, although 5 of them were invincible saints. Even invincible saints were in great danger in this chaotic battle. Die! Jian Wushuang first appeared behind the remaining peak saint of the Destruction Saint Realm and performed the Blood Drop move. The peak saint did not have time to react before his divine body was penetrated by Jian Wushuang, and more than 60% of his divine power was lost. After the peak saint's divine body was reconstituted, he killed the peak saint with another sword move. Then Jian Wushuang attacked the invincible saints one by one. Oh no, I can't block his swordsmanship. Bastard! In just a moment, except for the 2 experts on the true saint list, Thunder God and Wan Xian, the other 3 invincible saints in the Saint Realm were all killed by Jian Wushuang. They could not resist Jian Wushuang's attacks at all. Chi, 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 chi. The sound of their divine bodies being penetrated rang out one after another. These 3 invincible saints had much more divine power than ordinary peak saints, and their protective abilities were stronger. Jian Wushuang's sword could only destroy 10% or 20% of their divine power, but the 3 invincible saints' divine power was being consumed crazily. In just a short while, the 3 invincible saints had consumed less than 40% of their divine power. Seeing this, Thunder God and Wan Xian could no longer care about fighting for the Blood Wave token. They had to rush over to help them resist Jian Wushuang's assassination. In the end, they had no choice but to do so. Retreat, leave the battlefield first. The 5 people from the Destruction Saint Realm retreated. There was no other way. If they did not retreat, the remaining 3 invincible saints would probably die at the hands of Jian Wushuang. Thunder God and Wan Xian had to stay with these 3 people and ask an expert who was good at soul to help sense Jian Wushuang's position in order to ensure the safety of these 3 invincible saints. The retreat of the 5 Saint Realm exterminators surprised the other contenders, especially Saint Devil Son of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Ha! These 2 troublemakers have finally retreated. Thank you, Heavenly Sword Marquis. Saint Devil Son's hearty laughter echoed across the battlefield. Jian Wushuang also glanced at Saint Devil Son. Although the purpose of his attack this time was purely to take revenge on the 3 Saint Realms and kill the experts from the Destruction Saint Realm, it did help Saint Devil Son a lot. It must be known that the Saint Devil Son had been eyeing the Blood Wave medallion in the Shijun's hand since the beginning. However, while he was snatching it, the Destruction Saint Realm had arrived. Although Thunder God and Wan Xian were not as strong as him individually when they joined forces, it had also brought him a lot of trouble, which was why the Blood Wave token was still in the Shijun's hand. But now that Thunder God and Wan Xian had retreated, he could completely let go. With a flip of his left hand, another black divine sword appeared in his hand. His 2 black divine swords were raised at the same time, and the difference between them, 2 different divine powers, 1 black and 1 white, appeared. White represented life, and black represented death. Life and death combined perfectly. This was the embodiment of comprehending the principles of life and death to the extreme, the great destruction of life and death. Boom! The 2 divine rapiers smashed out at the same time. The power of the black and white divine power was unleashed to the extreme, coupled with the innate advantage given by Saint Devil's Son as a special life form. The power of this move was earth-shaking. On the battlefield, almost everyone's eyes were attracted by this move of Saint Devil's Son. Even Jian Wushuang felt the same way. No wonder he is the second-ranked Holy Devil's Son on the True Saint list. It is said that he is the only one on the True Saint list who is qualified to fight with the Light King. Now, it seems that it is true. At least his current move is no weaker than the staff skill of the Light King, which combines the two principles. Jian Wushuang sighed in his heart. Chapter 3255. The battle had ended .. Sensing the shocking power contained in the Saint Devil's Son's move, Shijun's expression changed drastically. He tried his best to block this move, but bang! With a loud bang, Shijun rolled and retreated in a sorry state. Even though he had regained his balance, his body was still shaking crazily. Moreover, the divine power aura on his body was weakened. Shijun, your divine power is less than 30%. Hand over the blood wave token to me. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave the blood wave realm. The Saint Devil's Son's cold voice echoed in the center of the battlefield. Damn it! Shijun's face was extremely unsightly. He stared at the Saint Devil's Son in front of him. If it weren't for the fact that there are too many people surrounding me, how could you not be able to do anything to me? Shijun was extremely unwilling to accept this. From the start of this battle, he had been surrounded and killed by many experts. Later on, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and the Destruction Saint Realm joined in. Although he was powerful and had a strong life-saving ability, he could not withstand the encirclement of so many people. As for the Saint Devil's Son, if it was a one-on-one fight, he was not really afraid of the Saint Devil's Son because, although the latter was stronger than him, he could not kill him at all. But now, under the siege of everyone, and the Saint Devil's Son, it was enough to pose a fatal threat to him. Shijun, do you still want to struggle? Do you really think no one can kill you? The Saint Devil's Son voice was cold. As he spoke, the divine power aura on his body, which was far above that of the invincible saint, soared again, almost reaching a whole new realm. This guy actually hit his strength. Shijun's pupils constricted, but he could only shake his head, helplessly. Forget it, Saint Devil's Son, you're amazing. As soon as he finished speaking, Shijun directly waved his hand and threw a token towards Saint Devil's Son. This token emitted an extremely unique aura. The many experts on the battlefield could tell at a glance that this was indeed the Blood Wave token. At least you're sensible. The Saint Devil's Son took the token and put it into his interspatial ring, but a smile appeared on his face. When the experts around saw that the Blood Wave token had fallen into the Saint Devil's Son's hands, their expressions became extremely ugly. Damn it! The Blood Wave token has fallen into the Saint Devil's Son's hands. If it was in the Lord Eater's hands, we might have a chance to fight for it. But in the Saint Devil's Son's hands, it's impossible to snatch the Blood Wave token from the Saint Devil's Son's hands. Quick, go and snatch the other 2 Blood Wave tokens. 3 Blood Wave tokens, 3 different battlefields. As the first Blood Wave token fell into the hands of the Saint Devil's Son, the experts who had been fighting for it immediately rushed to the other 2 battlefields. No one chose to snatch the Blood Wave token from the Saint Devil's Son. The first Blood Wave token naturally belonged to someone. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBox Novel. Thanks. On the second battlefield, there were also nearly 200 experts fighting for the token. The strongest of them were from the Temporal Temple and the Life and Death Saint Realm. The Temporal Temple was led by Di Hao, who was currently ranked 4th on the True Saint rankings. His strength was extremely shocking, especially his axe technique, which could barely stack the power of two principals together with his secret techniques. This power was enough to allow him to run rampant on the battlefield. However, Silver Wolf of the Life and Death Saint realm was also very powerful. Most importantly, an expert ranked in the top 20 on the True Saint list chose to join forces with him, so he could fight Dihao head-on. As many experts joined the first battlefield, the battlefield became even more intense and crazy. But now, there was a change in the battlefield. The change was, of course, Jian Wushuang. He directly rushed into the battlefield and immediately launched an assassination on the experts of the Life and Death Saint realm. As soon as he launched his assassination, the Life and Death Saint realm was faced with unprecedented trouble after two peak saints were killed by Jian Wushuang, and an invincible saint was defeated by Jian Wushuang's divine body. Silver Wolf no longer had the desire to fight for the Bloodwave token. He could only choose to leave the battlefield immediately. Without the powerful battle strength of the Life and Death Saint realm and the help of Jian Wushuang, no one on the battlefield could stop Dihao. Soon, the second Bloodwave token fell into Dihao's hands. Just like the previous Saint Devil Sun, since the Bloodwave token had fallen into the hands of Dihao, who ranked fourth on the True Saint list, no one dared to fight for it. The second Bloodwave token also belonged to him. Next, it was time to fight for the third Bloodwave token. The fight for the last Bloodwave token was naturally even crazier. Moreover, there were many solitary experts fighting for this Bloodwave token. They fought crazily for nearly 15 minutes. More than dozens of experts had fallen, but they were still in a stalemate. However, at this time, the Light King had arrived. The Light King was a distance away from the battlefield. When 3 Bloodwave tokens appeared, he rushed over as fast as he could. Clearly, he was not too late. At least one Bloodwave token was still there. After he arrived on the battlefield, he used shocking methods to crush everything. He easily took the last Bloodwave token from the many experts fighting over it. From then on, the 3 Bloodwave tokens that were born this time all belonged to someone else. The feast of fighting had come to an end. It was still the same void. The fighting had stopped completely. However, the experts still stayed here and did not leave immediately. Crazy! This fight is too crazy. I've been here since the beginning of the fight. Although I didn't participate in the fight, I saw the whole process clearly. From the beginning to the end of the fight, more than 60 experts died in the process. Yeah, more or less. Fortunately, they all have immortal bodies. Even if their divine bodies were destroyed once or twice, they could still survive. Otherwise, at least 200 or 300 experts would have died in this battle. Some experts who did not participate in this battle, but saw the process very clearly, were discussing in secret. Immortal bodies were indeed the most powerful life-saving means for true saints. If they did not have immortal bodies and died immediately after their divine bodies were destroyed, then many experts would have died in the battle just now. However, even with an immortal body, more than 60 experts had already died in this battle. It could be seen how crazy this battle was. Most of these experts who died are solitary experts. As long as a very small number of them are from some factions or sects, these solitary experts don't have their own teams. If they want to fight for the Bloodwave token, they will have to go all out. However, how can the Bloodwave token be so easy to fight for? A purple-robed old man sneered. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a thin and cold-looking young man next to him gave a strange smile. Who said that those major powers and sects suffered relatively light losses? Look at those 2 sanctums. They're quite miserable. Chapter 3256. First assassination underscore in this battle, most of the experts who had died were solitary experts. As for those experts from large factions and sects, very few of them had died. However, the Life and Death Saint Realm and the Destruction Saint Realm were exceptions. In the Void, the experts who had just participated in the battle or had witnessed the battle gathered in twos and threes. They looked in the direction of the experts from the Life and Death Saint Realm and the Destruction Saint Realm with gloating gazes. When the two Saint Realms entered the Bloodwave Realm, each Saint Realm had a total of 10 experts, which was an extremely powerful lineup. But now, there were only 5 experts of the Destruction Saint Realm left, and there were only 5 experts of the Life and Death Saint Realm left. In the Bloodwave world, the two Saint Realms had lost half of their bodies. Besides the 2 peak saints of the Life and Death Saint Realm who had died in the beginning, everyone else had been killed in the competition. The one who had killed them was Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis is too terrifying. His assassination methods are impossible to guard against. He killed so many experts from the 2 Saint Realms in one go. He's really ruthless. It would be strange if he wasn't ruthless. Don't forget that all the experts from the 3 Saint Realms went out to kill him. They even invited Light King and 9 Temples Saintess. Now that Heavenly Sword Marquis has a chance, he will definitely take revenge. The Destruction Saint Realm and the Life and Death Saint Realm have suffered great losses this time. The experts on the scene were discussing in whispers. As for the remaining experts from the 2 Saint Realms, their faces were extremely gloomy as they stared at Jian Wushuang. Their eyes were filled with shock, anger, and resentment. It was obvious that they wanted to tear Jian Wushuang apart and eat him alive. However, when they thought of Jian Wushuang's life-saving methods, they felt helpless. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are so ruthless this time. After saying this, Thunder God turned around and left. Humph! Silver Wolf snorted and left with the rest of the Life and Death Saint Realm experts. Jian Wushuang just watched quietly and had no intention of pursuing them. These 2 Saint Realms are smart. They don't want to attack me. Even when they left, they specially invited an expert who specializes in the soul. Jian Wushuang looked at the 2 Saint Realm experts who had left. When the 2 Saint Realms left, they each brought a soul expert whom they had just invited at a high price. They also understood that in the face of Jian Wushuang's assassination, without an expert who specialized in soul, they would only be beaten up. The lineup of the 2 Saint Realms is extremely strong. Now that I've killed half of the experts in each of the 2 Saint Realms, most of the survivors are invincible saints, with an expert who specializes in soul. Even if I continue to chase after them and assassinate them, the chances of success are not high. Jian Wushuang sighed quietly. Well, anyway, the losses I've caused to the 3 Saint Realms are enough to make their hearts ache. Let's wait for another opportunity. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. Jian Wushuang smiled and left after bidding farewell to Di Hao, Chen Hongzi, and the others. He still did not choose to go with the people of the Temporal Temple. After all, he still had ideas about the experts of the 3 Saint Realms. As the experts left one after another, the huge contest came to an end. Although the contest ended, the process of the contest caused a great commotion in the Bloodwave realm. At the same time, there were some interesting topics. For example, Jian Wushuang's assassination of the 2 Saint Realms shocked many people. The outside world had a deeper understanding of Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis is really ruthless. The 3 Saint Realms beseech him before, but now he is crazily assassinating the experts of the 3 Saint Realms. During this feast, the experts of the Destruction Saint Realm and the Life and Death Saint Realm were completely numb from his assassination. He didn't even care about the Bloodwave tokens and could only run far away. If it weren't for him, who would the 3 Bloodwave tokens belong to would be uncertain. He has guts. Facing the three experts of the Saint Realm, the Light King, and the 9 Temples Saintess, he still dares to stay and play with them. His strength and talent are incredible. He just broke through to the 7th rank True Saint, and his battle strength is comparable to that of an invincible saint. His desire for revenge is also very strong. The 3 Saint Realms were mercilessly avenged by him this time. And the most important thing is that his methods are too amazing. Visit Readel, me for extra chapters. Yes, whether it's his life-saving ability or his assassination ability, they are all very terrifying. Previously, the forces of the Divine Beginning Realm had already publicly acknowledged that Heavenly Sword Marquis' life-saving ability was the best among the immortal saints. However, after the assassination in this battle, I'm afraid that Heavenly Sword Marquis' assassination ability can also be said to be the best. After all, he assassinated and killed an invincible saint. His life-saving ability is difficult to deal with his terrifying assassination methods, and his courage is very ruthless. We should never provoke such a person. All corners of the Bloodwave realm were talking about Jian Wushuang, which made Jian Wushuang's reputation reach a whole new level. Not long after the end of the feast, there was another item in the information about Jian Wushuang. In addition to his previously recognized life-saving ability, Jian Wushuang had also killed an invincible saint. In the Bloodwave realm, the fight for the Bloodwave tokens continued. Although 6 Bloodwave tokens had been created and had been taken away, there were still 4 Bloodwave tokens that had not been created. Everyone was waiting eagerly. Jian Wushuang stopped on an empty hill. He flipped his palm and looked at the information he had just received. It was his own. In addition to my life-saving ability, my assassination ability is also recognized as number 1. Moreover, the evaluation on this information is really high. It also says that although I'm not on the True Saint list, I'm more terrifying than many experts on the True Saint list. A playful smile appeared on the corner of Jian Wushuang's mouth, but he soon understood. Indeed, ordinary experts on the True Saint list were not as terrifying as him. After all, even experts on the True Saint list would find it difficult to kill the invincible saint in a one-on-one fight unless they were surrounded by people. Only the top experts on the True Saint list had killed the invincible saint. However, he had killed an invincible saint in front of everyone during the feast. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3257. Return the favor _ to be able to kill the invincible saint on his own. Although the invincible saint was not in his peak state, it was still very impressive. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had killed an invincible saint, Blue Eagle, but it was not seen by outsiders and did not spread out. All in all, he was much more terrifying than an ordinary expert on the True Saint list. With my life-saving ability and assassination ability, I'm now really famous in the Divine Beginning realm. Jian Wushuang smiled. At this moment, Jian Wushuang, a message suddenly came. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. In this life, except for the first time when he was born in the Sorcerer God realm, he used an alias. Especially after reaching the 3rd heaven, almost no one knew his real name. But now, the message was addressed to him by his real name. So it's Miss Shower. Long time no see. I wonder how my family is doing at your place. Jian Wushuang replied, with a smile. Miss Shower was Jian Wushuang's most mysterious woman in this life. She was also a reincarnated person with a mysterious identity. Jian Wushuang did not know her real origin. However, he learned from Xian Shen Daoist that Miss Shower was not his friend or enemy, so they had formed an alliance before. Later, when the people from the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley wanted to take his wife, Lung Rushuang, away. Jian Wushuang used his life-level power and heaven-cleaving skill at all costs, which alerted the power of the will of heaven. Even the experts from the three saint realms came in person. Jian Wushuang had no choice but to ask his ally to help. Miss Shower did have the means to move all his family members in this life in the shortest time possible, including his parents in this life. He also had a sister and a brother. Over the years, Jian Wushuang would occasionally ask Miss Shower about the situation of his relatives, but this was the first time Miss Shower took the initiative to look for him. Don't worry, your relatives are doing very well, and I have used resources to force your parents to reach the level of immortal saint. As for your brothers and sisters, they are more competitive and want to rely on their own strength to grow, but their talent is limited and their growth is not satisfactory. But in general, there is no problem, Shower said. That's good. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. May I know why Miss Shower is looking for me? Jian Wushuang, I have just received news that there is a man named Heavenly Sword Marquis in the Blood Wave realm. He is very skilled. His life-saving ability and assassination ability are ranked first among the immortal saints. This person should be you, right? Shower asked. It's me. Jian Wushuang did not deny it. He had fought several times in the Blood Wave realm, and someone had recorded his battle with a mirror image. He did not deliberately disguise his appearance, so Shower could naturally recognize him at a glance. When I met you before, you were not even in the heavenly demon realm. Now, in less than 1,000 years, you have already made a name for yourself in the divine beginning realm. It seems that I did not misjudge you when I chose to form an alliance with you, Shower said. Miss Shower, you didn't come here to tell me this, did you? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. Of course not, Shower said. I came to find you because of someone, the Nine Temples Saintess. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Come, thanks. It's really her. It seems that Miss Shower must have had a good relationship with the Nine Temples Saintess. Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently, not surprised at all. He had met the Nine Temples Saintess before, and she had used the charm on him. Shower had used that special charm on him before. Jian Wushuang felt it was very familiar at that time, and he had guessed that there might be a special relationship between the Nine Temples Saintess and the mysterious Miss Shower. I did have some relationship with her before, and am looking for you this time to ask you to help me kill the Nine Temples Saintess in the Blood Wave realm, Shower said seriously. Kill her? Jian Wushuang was slightly surprised, but then he shook his head. Miss Shower, don't you think too highly of me? Yes, my assassination skills are the best among the immortal saints. But no matter how good my assassination skills are, I can barely kill an ordinary invincible saint. But the Nine Temples Saintess is one of the top 5 experts on the True Saint list, and she was ranked 3rd before. It's impossible for me to kill Nine Temples Saintess with my assassination ability. Visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. Jian Wushuang was telling the truth. His assassination ability could threaten an ordinary invincible saint, but it definitely could not threaten an expert ranked in the top 5 on the True Saint list like Nine Temples Saintess. Even if he used his strongest trump card, the heaven-cleaving skill, he was not confident that he could kill Nine Temples Saintess. Can't do it. Shower was silent for a moment, and then said, Well, since you are not sure that you can kill her, then forget it. But if you can, I want you to try to stop her from getting the opportunity in the Blood Wave realm. Is that okay? Just stop her. If she doesn't get the Blood Wave token, I can give it a try, Jian Wushuang said. Well, if you don't let her get the opportunity in the Blood Wave realm, then you can pay me back for saving your family. How about that? Shower said, No problem. Jian Wushuang nodded. Well, I'll wait for your good news. Shower said, and then cut off the communication. On the hill, Jian Wushuang put the communication token into his interspatial ring and then exhaled heavily. I had guessed that the Nine Temples Saintess was related to Miss Shower, but I didn't expect them to be enemies. I didn't expect Miss Shower to come to me and ask me to kill her for her. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly. The Nine Temples Saintess had helped the three Saint Realms to kill him, which was already a grudge between them. But now, the mysterious Miss Shower asked him to find a way to kill the Nine Temples Saintess or prevent her from getting the opportunity in the Blood Wave realm. Nine Temples Saintess. It's not that incalculative, but right now, I do have a reason to attack you, Jian Wushuang murmured. He owed Miss Shower a favor, and he owed her more than one. Since it was a favor, of course, he had to pay it back. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3258, The Nine Temples Saintess in the Void at the center of the Blood Wave realm. A beautiful woman wearing a silver robe was sitting there quietly. Although she was sitting quietly with her eyes closed, the charm she exuded was enough to make people dream about her. The Nine Temples Saintess was not only the top 5 on the True Saint list, but she was also the goddess in the hearts of many immortal saints in the Blood Wave realm. In terms of beauty, there were few people in the entire Divine Beginning realm who could compare with her. At this moment, the Nine Temples Saintess suddenly opened her beautiful eyes and looked to the side. In that direction, a figure was rushing over. Nine Temples Saintess, long time no see. How have you been? Jian Wushuang crossed his arms and said with a faint smile. After locking his eyes on Nine Temples Saintess, he asked the Temporal Temple to find her location and immediately rushed over. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Nine Temples Saintess looked at Jian Wushuang and frowned slightly. What are you doing here? Nothing. I just happened to pass by and saw you here, so I came to say hello. Jian Wushuang smiled. By the way, I read about you before. It said that you're from the Nine-Tailed Clan, one of the 4 divine clans. Is that true? Whether I'm from the Nine-Tailed Clan has nothing to do with you, right? The Nine Temples Saintess glanced at Jian Wushuang. She had helped the 3 Saint Realms deal with Jian Wushuang before, so she was naturally wary of him. However, she did not have a deep hatred for Jian Wushuang before. If possible, she would like to ease the relationship between them. After all, it was better to be friends with a genius like Jian Wushuang. It was better than being enemies. You're right. In that case, I won't disturb you, Jian Wushuang said, and then directly flew toward the void. Nine Temples Saintess thought that Jian Wushuang would leave, but she found that Jian Wushuang stopped in the void, not far away from her, and then sat down cross-legged. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Nine Temples Saintess narrowed her eyes and immediately stood up and flew in the opposite direction of Jian Wushuang, trying to distance herself from him. However, when she moved, Jian Wushuang immediately stood up and followed her. Seeing this scene, the Nine Temples Saintess immediately understood that Jian Wushuang was not just passing by, as she said, but was deliberately coming for her. Heavenly Sword Marquis just took revenge on the 3 Saint Realms and killed half of the experts in the Destruction Saint Realm and the Life and Death Saint Realm. It is said that several experts in the Flame Saint Realm died at his hands. Now, does she have her eyes on me? Nine Temples Saintess' expression changed slightly. Then she directly went up to Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Nine Temples Saintess appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and smiled. Her every move was charming and mesmerizing. Heavenly Sword Marquis, do you have a crush on me? Nine Temples Saintess said, with a smile. A crush on you? Nine Temples Saintess, don't you think too highly of yourself? Jian Wushuang smiled coldly with a mocking look in his eyes. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. Nine Temples Saintess was not annoyed, but said in a low voice, "In that case, why are you following me?" What a joke. We are all wandering in the central area of the Bloodwave realm, and we are all fighting for the Bloodwave token. The central area of the Bloodwave realm is only so big. How can you say that I am following you? Jian Wushuang sneered. Nine Temples Saintess' eyes slightly sank, but she could not refute. Well, then you should be careful. The Bloodwave realm ignored Jian Wushuang and continued to fly forward, Jian Wushuang following closely behind her. Half a day passed in a flash, but the Bloodwave realm could not shake Jian Wushuang off. What's wrong with Heavenly Sword Marquis? The Nine Temples Saintess was extremely angry. No matter who it would be uncomfortable to be followed like this. Not to mention the Nine Temples Saintess was a little afraid of Jian Wushuang. This fear was because she was not a threat to Jian Wushuang at all. Although Heavenly Sword Marquis is not very strong, his life-saving ability and assassination ability are recognized as the best. Moreover, his physique is very strange, so he is completely immune to my soul attacks. He is my nemesis. Fortunately, his assassination ability is not a threat to me at the moment. Otherwise, I would really be a threat if he targeted me, Nine Temples Saintess murmured. She could not threaten Jian Wushuang, and it was difficult for Jian Wushuang to threaten her. This was what Nine Temples Saintess knew in her heart. Visit Re-Adel, me for extra chapters. However, because neither side could threaten the other, she felt irritated because Jian Wushuang was following her. In her opinion, Jian Wushuang was simply wasting time. Moreover, if they really encountered the birth of the Bloodwave token, if they fought, they would hinder each other. This was not beneficial to either of them. No. Nine Temples Saintess' face suddenly changed. If the Bloodwave token was born near us, we would be in each other's way if we fought for it at the same time. However, Heavenly Sword Marquis had already obtained one Bloodwave token a long time ago, so it would be useless even if he got another one. Therefore, his purpose now is not to fight for the Bloodwave token, but to hinder me and prevent me from getting the Bloodwave token. The Nine Temples Saintess finally understood Jian Wushuang's purpose, but after understanding it, she became even more distressed. After all, she could not do anything to a person who was her nemesis. How could she fight for the Bloodwave token if he kept following her and hindering her? Heavenly Sword Marquis, we didn't have a big grudge before. It was the 3 Saint Realms who paid a great price to ask me to help them, so I only gave them face. Moreover, with the 3 Saint Realms ability, even if I didn't agree, they would invite other experts who are good at soul to deal with you. Why are you still clinging to me? Why don't you and I bury the hatchet? Maybe we can become good friends. What do you think? If you're still not satisfied, I can give you a batch of resources and treasures as an apology. What do you think? Nine Temples Saintess stopped and said, "Bury the hatchet? Become good friends? I'm sorry, I don't think so." Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. How about I owe you a favor at most? Many people want a favor from me, the Nine Temples Saintess. The Nine Temples Saintess continued, "I'm not interested." Jian Wushuang still shook his head. Heavenly Sword Marquis, don't go too far. The Nine Temples Saintess was extremely angry. Go too far? So what if I go too far? If you have the ability, why don't you kill me? Jian Wushuang sneered. Shameless. The Nine Temples Saintess finally could not help but curse. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3259. The Eighth Blood Wave, Token Shameless. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. How dare you call yourself shameless, when you and so many experts from the three saint realms and the Light King surrounded me, a rank 6 true saint? Did you ever think of being shameless? The Nine Temples Saintess was at a loss for words. Indeed, they had surrounded Jian Wushuang and killed him alone. Moreover, Jian Wushuang was only a rank 6 true saint at that time. Humph, in that case, you should follow me. Nine Temples Saintess clenched her teeth and rushed forward without bothering Jian Wushuang. Of course, Jian Wushuang followed her from a distance. 3 days passed in a row. During these 3 days, Jian Wushuang followed closely behind Nine Temples Saintess. Nine Temples Saintess also tried to get rid of him, but Jian Wushuang was not slower than her. He was even slightly faster than Nine Temples Saintess, so Nine Temples Saintess did not succeed. During these 3 days, the 7th Blood Wave token was born. However, because the place where it was born was far away, Jian Wushuang and the Nine Temples Saintess did not have time to catch up. In the end, the Blood Wave token was obtained by an expert named Silver Snow King. Silver Snow King was a new expert in the Blood Wave realm. Although he was not ranked on the True Saint list, many people thought that he had the battle strength of the top 20 on the True Saint list after the previous competition. In the vast void, it's been 3 days. Heavenly Sword Marquis has been following me closely for 3 days, but he hasn't given up. Instead of seeking revenge from the 3 saint realms, he has been following me. It's obvious that he wants to stare at me until he dies. Nine Temples Saintess kept moving forward. However, her soul power could sense Jian Wushuang's presence behind her. She was so angry that she could not help but clench her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. But at this moment, buzz, the earth shook, and then a special fluctuation spread from the void not far away. This fluctuation immediately made Nine Temples Saintess ecstatic. The Blood Wave token has been born, and it's clearly around me. It's very close to me. Nine Temples Saintess immediately became excited. Since the opening of the Blood Wave realm, 7 Blood Wave tokens had been born and obtained. Only 3 remained. These 3 Blood Wave tokens were especially important. My luck wasn't good previously. I didn't manage to catch up to the first 7 Blood Wave tokens. Even the craziest competition for the 3 Blood Wave tokens wasn't able to catch up. Instead, it was given to people like Coldheart and Silver Snow King, who were weaker than me. And this 8th Blood Wave token appeared right next to me. This time, I finally caught up. No matter what, I must get this Blood Wave token. A trace of heat also appeared in Nine Temples Saintess' beautiful eyes, and then she rushed toward the source of the fluctuation as fast as she could. While rushing toward the source of the fluctuation, Nine Temples Saintess also noticed Jian Wushuang's movement. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Come, thanks. Sure enough, Heavenly Sword Marquis has caught up with me. If nothing unexpected happens, he will definitely try his best to hinder me and prevent me from getting the Blood Wave token. Unfortunately, I already have a way to deal with it. Nine Temples Saintess sneered in her heart. During the 3 days of entanglement with Jian Wushuang, Nine Temples Saintess had already planned how to deal with Jian Wushuang. Now, of course, she had an idea. Soon, Nine Temples Saintess and Jian Wushuang arrived at the void, where the Blood Wave token was born. In the void, the fight had begun, but there were only a dozen people present, most of whom were peak saints. As for the Invincible Saint, there was only one, and there were no experts on the True Saint list. A good opportunity. Nine Temples Saintess was overjoyed, but she did not rush to the battlefield immediately. Instead, she rushed directly toward Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis, take this! 9 temples Saintess appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, and a strong green light shone from her beautiful eyes. Jian Wushuang was quite familiar with this green light. When he was besieged by the experts of the 3 Saint Realms, he used the Lonely Hell, which trapped 9 temples Saintess and Thunder God. However, the 9 temples Saintess had forced herself out of the solitary hell with a flash of green light in her eyes. She had even helped Thunder God fight for it. Now, the green light appeared again and shone at Jian Wushuang for a moment. Is it a soul attack or a charm? Jian Wushuang stood there indifferently, unmoved by the green light. No matter what the 9 temples Saintess did, she could never threaten him. However, when the green light shone on him, Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. Visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. It's not a charm, it's an illusion. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. This illusion was very powerful. Even with Jian Wushuang's state of mind, he fell into it at once. Although he immediately sensed it and began to attack it, he still needed time to break it. Although it did not take much time, 2 or 3 breaths was enough. During these 2 or 3 breaths, the 9 temples Saintess had already rushed toward the battlefield ahead. She clearly thought that as soon as the fight began, she would immediately use the illusion to trap Jian Wushuang and then seize the Blood Wave token while Jian Wushuang was in the illusion, as long as she was fast enough. When Jian Wushuang caught up with her again, she would definitely have taken the Blood Wave token. As long as she got the Blood Wave token, Jian Wushuang could only watch helplessly. Her plan was flawless. Just as she expected, Jian Wushuang was trapped in the illusion, and she also entered the battlefield proudly. There were only a dozen people on the battlefield, and there was only one invincible saint who could resist the 9th Temple Saintess, who was ranked 5th on the true saint list. Moreover, the 9 temples Saintess specialized in the soul, and soul attacks were the most terrifying to many people. After all, an undying body was useless to the soul. As soon as the 9 temples Saintess appeared, her soul attacks swept across and easily killed several peak saints. The invincible saint, who had already obtained the Blood Wave token, was so scared that he immediately gave it to her. Since then, the 8th Blood Wave token had successfully fallen into the hands of the 9 temples Saintess. At this time, Jian Wushuang had just escaped from the illusion. When he saw that the Blood Wave token had fallen into the hands of the 9 temples Saintess, Jian Wushuang's expression changed slightly. He was wondering whether he should continue to fight for it. However, his expression suddenly changed. Another expert came, and the aura of the person who came seems to be very strong. Well, it's them. Jian Wushuang looked at the figures coming from the void, but a strange smile appeared on his face. This is interesting. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3260, Underworld Emperor, Iron Tower _ not far away in the void. 2 figures were rushing over side by side. Both of them were extremely fast and appeared around the battlefield in an instant. When they arrived, they happened to see the 9 temples Saintess putting the Blood Wave token into her interspatial ring. Seeing this, their expressions sank. It's them. The 9 temples Saintess also sensed their arrival and could not help but raise her eyebrows. If it was any other expert, even if it was the 2 invincible saints or 2 experts on the true saint list, the 9 temples Saintess would not care too much. But the 2 people in front of her brought great pressure to the 9 temples Saintess. These 2 people stood side by side in front of the 9 temples Saintess. On the right side was a bald man who was over 3 meters tall and was as strong as a mountain. This bald man carried a mace. he had a gentle smile on his face and gave off a simple and honest feeling. However, it was this simple and honest man that made the hearts of the experts present tremble. Taita was currently ranked 13th on the True Saint list. This was a solitary expert who had become famous a long time ago. However, no one knew his real name. As for the name Taita, it was given to him by others because he was not only tall and sturdy, he was like a mountain, and most importantly, he had an almost invincible body protection ability. His body protection and defense ability was widely recognized as the number one among the many immortal saints in the divine beginning realm. Just like Jian Wushuang's widely recognized number one life-saving ability and assassination ability, Iron Tower was the number one defense ability. That was why it was called Iron Tower, which meant it was indestructible. In addition to his defense, his offensive skills were also good, especially the mace in his hand. When he swung it, it was powerful enough to easily crush the invincible saint. That was why he was ranked 13th on the True Saint list. If it was just Taita alone, 9 temples Saintess could accept it. After all, Taita could not do anything to her. But beside Taita, in front of 9 temples Saintess to her, right, there was a man in a black robe. He had a cold and gloomy aura. The aura emitted by this cold man was shocking and completely covered everyone present. Even the aura of Taita and the 9 temples Saintess was completely covered by him. He stood there with a cold expression. He was like a death god. Underworld Emperor. It's the Underworld Emperor who is ranked 3rd on the True Saint list. The surrounding experts could not help exclaiming when they saw Longju. Underworld Emperor was an expert who had suddenly emerged after the opening of the Blood Wave realm. However, even though he had suddenly emerged, his terrifying strength still shocked everyone. It should be known that before the True Saint list, Light King ranked 1st, Saint Devil Sun ranked 2nd, and 9 temples Saintess ranked 3rd. During the battle between the 3 Saint realms and Jian Wushuang, Dihao and Light King proved that Dihao was slightly stronger than 9 temples Saintess because Dihao should be ranked 3rd. However, since Underworld Emperor fought in the Blood Wave realm, Underworld Emperor was immediately ranked 3rd, while Dihao and 9 temples Saintess were both ranked below him, and no one questioned this result. It was because the Underworld Emperor's strength was indeed terrifying. The battle where the Underworld Emperor became famous was when he challenged the Saint Devil Sun. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novel Full. Thanks. In the end, he fought the Saint Devil Sun for close to 15 minutes. In the end, the Saint Devil Sun relied on his innate advantage as a special life form to barely beat the Underworld Emperor. However, after the battle, the Saint Devil Sun admitted that in terms of strength, the Underworld Emperor was not much weaker than him, and it was because of this that the Underworld Emperor became famous. Now, the Underworld Emperor and Taita, one ranked 3rd on the True Saint list, and the other ranked 13th on the True Saint list, these 2 peak existences appeared on this battlefield. Moreover, both of them were obviously interested in the Blood Wave token in the hands of the 9 temples Saintess. Underworld Emperor, Taita, I'm afraid that the 2 of you are late. The 9 temples Saintess stood in front of the Underworld Emperor, and Taita with an indifferent expression. Late? I don't think so. Aren't you still standing here? The Underworld Emperor let out an evil voice. What? Are the 2 of you planning to snatch the Blood Wave token from me? The 9 temples Saintess mocked. Although the 9 temples Saintess was extremely fearful of the formation of the Underworld Emperor, and Taita, she was not afraid. After all, with her strength, she was not afraid even if she met the Light King directly. The Light King could at most crush or heavily injure her, but it was almost impossible to kill her. If the Blood Wave token fell into your hands before, we wouldn't have paid attention to it. But now it's different. The Underworld Emperor said in a low voice, "The Bloodwave realm is nearing its end. Out of the 10 Bloodwave tokens, 7 have already appeared and fallen into someone else's hands. The one in your hands is the 8th one. In other words, if we miss this chance, we can only wait for the last 2 Bloodwave tokens to appear. But there are so many people fighting for those 2 Bloodwave tokens. Who knows who will get them in the end?" You're right. The further you go, the lower your chances of getting the Bloodwave token. It's fine that the Underworld Emperor and I didn't manage to get it before, but since we managed to get it this time, we naturally won't let you go so easily. Taita also spoke coldly. His voice was like thunder. 9 temples Saintess, hand over the Bloodwave token. Otherwise, the 2 of us won't be polite to you. What a joke. Just the 2 of you want to kill me? The 9 temples Saintess was also filled with anger. How would we know if we don't try? The Underworld Emperor smiled coldly and glanced at Taita at the side. Brother Taita, since this 9 temples Saintess is so stubborn, why don't we join hands and teach her a lesson? If we have the chance, why don't we kill her? No problem. Taita nodded and stepped forward. Watch me. As soon as he finished speaking, Taita pulled out the mace behind him. His 3-meter-tall body was holding a 2-meter-long mace. There was a faint, earthy, yellow energy gathering on the mace. Then he suddenly smashed it out. Boom! The heaven and earth shook, and the huge mace directly smashed toward the 9 temples Saintess. Before it got close, a shocking pressure spread out. The 9 temples Saintess' eyes turned cold. The moment Taita attacked, her soul attack had already swept toward Taita. Her soul attack was extremely powerful. Among the immortal saints, it should be the first. Even if she did not use her strongest move, it was still extremely terrifying. It was enough to heavily injure the soul of an invincible saint. However, when this soul attack hit Taita, soul attack! Taita smiled disdainfully, but his body did not stop at all. The mace in his hand continued to crush him. Chapter 3261, Precious Treasure, Damn, the Iron Tower. Its defensive ability is still indestructible. The 9 temples Saintess could not help but curse in her heart. The Iron Tower was known as the #1 defensive ability. The #1 defensive ability did not only target the divine body. In terms of soul defense, the Iron Tower's soul defense ability was also quite terrifying. Ordinary soul attacks won't affect him at all. Even if I use my strongest move, I can only barely hurt his soul. I don't think I can seriously injure his soul. Taita is much more difficult to deal with than Heavenly Sword Marquis. 9 temples, Saintess muttered. Although her soul attacks were ineffective against Jian Wushuang, Jian Wushuang's weak attacks did not pose much of a threat to her. However, while Iron Tower's soul defense was extremely strong, its attack power was also very powerful, which was enough to pose a great threat to her. In comparison, she naturally felt that Iron Tower was more difficult to deal with. Humph! Just as Iron Tower's mace was about to hit 9 temples Saintess, 9 temples Saintess snorted coldly and immediately formed a towering cyclops with majestic soul power in front of her. This cyclops also held a spiked mace in his hand. In terms of size, it was not any smaller than the Iron Tower. Then, the spiked mace in the cyclops' hand also smashed out. Bang! With a loud sound, the cyclops kept retreating. Every step he took caused the void to tremble. Obviously, in a one-on-one situation, the cyclops formed by the soul power of the 9 temples Saintess were still a little inferior to the Iron Tower. If one isn't enough, what about the other 3? A dense green light appeared in the 9 temples Saintess' eyes. In an instant, endless soul power swept out and formed 2 identical one-eyed giants. 3 giant, one-eyed giants stood in front of the Nine Temples Saintess, and each of them had a shocking momentum. The Nine Temples Saintess was ranked in the top 3 of the True Saint list, so her strength was not to be underestimated. Visit Readel, me for extra chapters. Any of the 3 one-eyed giants that she condensed with her soul power had the battle strength close to the True Saint list. If the 3 Cyclopes joined hands, even the top 10 experts of the True Saint list would be able to fight them. As the 3 Cyclopes attacked one after another, Iron Tower was soon completely suppressed. When the Underworld Emperor saw this scene, a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. You are indeed quite powerful, since you are ranked 5th on the True Saint list. However, this doesn't mean that you can take the Blood Wave token away from the 2 of us. After saying this, the Underworld Emperor finally made his move. With a sway of his body, the Underworld Emperor easily bypassed the battle between the Iron Tower and the 3 Cyclopes and appeared in front of the Nine Temples Saintess, after which a pitch-black blade light suddenly lit up. This pitch-black blade light was not only dazzling, but also extremely demonic. This was a black demonic blade. It was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Wherever the blade light went, all lives would be destroyed. Not good. The Nine Temples Saintess was shocked. Immediately, a large amount of soul power swept toward the Underworld Emperor. The Underworld Emperor was indeed very strong, but in terms of soul defense, he could not compare to Ta. Speaking of this soul attack, the Underworld Emperor's body trembled slightly, and his hand movements also paused slightly. The power of the pitch-black demonic blade was greatly reduced. After that, the Nine Temples Saintess flipped her hand, and a long sword appeared in her hand. A faint sword hum sounded. This sword hum was extremely strange, and it continuously affected people's state of mind. After that, the sword light collided with the pitch-black demonic blade. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out. The Nine Temples Saintess' body shook, and she staggered backward. It was not easy for her to regain her balance. So powerful! He was clearly affected by my soul attack, and his power was greatly weakened. However, his blade still crushed me. My divine power was damaged by nearly 10%. The Nine Temples Saintess' expression was ugly. She finally understood why Underworld Emperor was ranked 3rd on the True Saint list. There were only a few people on the True Saint list who could block the blade just now. After all, the Nine Temples Saintess specialized in the soul. However, her close combat ability was not weak. She could also compete with ordinary experts on the True Saint list. However, Underworld Emperor was already affected by her soul and was still able to suppress her. How terrifying was Underworld Emperor's attack? Are you scared, Nine Temples Saintess? If you are smart, hand over the Blood Wave token, and I will not make things difficult for you. However, if you don't hand it over, Underworld Emperor's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Humph, what a joke! The Nine Temples Saintess laughed disdainfully. You are courting death. The Underworld Emperor was a little angry. Nine Temples Saintess, I forgot to tell you that the attack just now was not my strongest attack. The next attack is... Hua! Another pitch-black blade light swept out. It was also extremely demonic. Moreover, the moment this blade light swept out, the entire world turned completely dark. The world no longer had any light, as if it had sunk into a dark void. This pitch-black demonic blade became the focal point of this dark void. This blade, the Nine Temples Saintess' pupils constricted. She could feel that this blade was more than twice as strong as the previous one. In her shock, she could only use all of her strength to block, but in the end, the Nine Temples Saintess was once again sent flying. At the same time, blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth, and the divine power aura on her body was immediately weakened. Damn it, I lost nearly 20% of my divine power in this attack. Nine Temples' Saintess face was unsightly, but she was immediately enraged. Emperor Ming, Tai Ta, you forced me to do this. A shrill roar echoed in the void, and Nine Temples' Saintess' eyes exploded. At the same time, an object faintly appeared between her eyebrows. It was a Cyan Divine lamp. The Cyan Divine lamp emitted an ancient and majestic aura. Sensing this aura, whether it was Emperor Ming, Iron Tower, or Jian Wushuang, who was far away from the battlefield, their pupils shrank. This is a supreme treasure. Jian Wushuang could not help clenching his hands. Yes, it was a supreme treasure. And judging from the aura, it was a soul attack type supreme treasure. This Nine Temples Saintess actually has a soul attack type true treasure. Underworld Emperor's expression changed. True treasures were something only Principal's masters were qualified to use. Although it was rumored that some immortal saints with great backgrounds or great opportunities also had true treasures, these immortal saints rarely used them even if they had won. Because true treasures were too precious, even Principal's masters would attach great importance to them. If it was not necessary, who would reveal that they had a true treasure that would cause countless great beings to be greedy, and they might even be targeted by Principal's masters. Ordinary true treasures were like that, and soul attack type true treasures were no less precious than domain type true treasures. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3261, Precious Treasure, Dam, the Iron Tower. Its defensive ability is still indestructible. The Nine Temples Saintess could not help but curse in her heart. The Iron Tower was known as the #1 defensive ability. The #1 defensive ability did not only target the divine body. In terms of soul defense, the Iron Tower's soul defense ability was also quite terrifying. Ordinary soul attacks won't affect him at all. Even if I use my strongest move, I can only barely hurt his soul. I don't think I can seriously injure his soul. Tai Ta is much more difficult to deal with than Heavenly Sword Marquis, Nine Temples Saintess muttered. Although her soul attacks were ineffective against Jian Wushuang's weak attacks did not pose much of a threat to her. However, while Iron Tower's soul defense was extremely strong, its attack power was also very powerful, which was enough to pose a great threat to her. In comparison, she naturally felt that Iron Tower was more difficult to deal with. Humph! Just as Iron Tower's mace was about to hit Nine Temples Saintess, Nine Temples Saintess snorted coldly and immediately formed a towering cyclops with majestic soul power in front of her. This cyclops also held a spiked mace in his hand. In terms of size, it was not any smaller than the Iron Tower. Then, the spiked mace in the cyclops' hand also smashed out. Bang! With a loud sound, the cyclops kept retreating. Every step he took caused the void to tremble. Obviously, in a one-on-one situation, the cyclops formed by the soul power of the Nine Temples Saintess were still a little inferior to the Iron Tower. If one isn't enough, what about the other three? A dense green light appeared in the Nine Temples Saintess' eyes. In an instant, endless soul power swept out and formed two identical one-eyed giants. Three giant, one-eyed giants stood in front of the Nine Temples Saintess, and each of them had a shocking momentum. The Nine Temples Saintess was ranked in the top 3 of the True Saint list, so her strength was not to be underestimated. Any of the 3 one-eyed giants that she condensed with her soul power had the battle strength close to the True Saint list. If the 3 Cyclopes joined hands, even the top 10 experts of the True Saint list would be able to fight them. As the 3 Cyclopes attacked one after another, Iron Tower was soon completely suppressed. When the Underworld Emperor saw this scene, a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. You are indeed quite powerful since you are ranked 5th on the True Saint list. However, this doesn't mean that you can take the Blood Wave token away from the two of us. After saying this, the Underworld Emperor finally made his move. With a sway of his body, the Underworld Emperor easily bypassed the battle between the Iron Tower and the 3 Cyclopes and appeared in front of the 9 Temples Saintess, after which a pitch-black blade light suddenly lit up. This pitch-black blade light was not only dazzling, but also extremely demonic. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBox Novel. Thanks. This was a black demonic blade. It was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Wherever the blade light went, all lives would be destroyed. Not good. The 9 Temples Saintess was shocked. Immediately, a large amount of soul power swept toward the Underworld Emperor. The Underworld Emperor was indeed very strong, but in terms of soul defense, he could not compare to Tai Ta. Speaking of this soul attack, the Underworld Emperor's body trembled slightly, and his hand movements also paused slightly. The power of the pitch-black demonic blade was greatly reduced. After that, the 9 Temples Saintess flipped her hand, and a long sword appeared in her hand. A faint sword hum sounded. This sword hum was extremely strange, and it continuously affected people's state of mind. After that, the sword light collided with the pitch-black demonic blade. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out. The 9 Temples Saintess body shook, and she staggered backward. It was not easy for her to regain her balance. So powerful. He was clearly affected by my soul attack, and his power was greatly weakened. However, his blade still crushed me. My divine power was damaged by nearly 10%. The 9 Temples Saintess expression was ugly. She finally understood why Underworld Emperor was ranked 3rd on the True Saint list. There were only a few people on the True Saint list who could block the blade just now. After all, the 9 Temples Saintess specialized in the soul. However, her close combat ability was not weak. She could also compete with ordinary experts on the True Saint list. However, Underworld Emperor was already affected by her soul and was still able to suppress her. How terrifying was Underworld Emperor's attack? Are you scared, 9 Temples Saintess? If you are smart, hand over the Blood Wave token, and I will not make things difficult for you. However, if you don't hand it over, Underworld Emperor's eyes flashed with a sharp light. What a joke! The 9 Temples Saintess laughed disdainfully. You are courting death. The Underworld Emperor was a little angry. 9 Temples Saintess, I forgot to tell you that the attack just now was not my strongest attack. The next attack is Hua. Another pitch-black blade light swept out. It was also extremely demonic. Moreover, the moment this blade light swept out, the entire world turned completely dark. The world no longer had any light, as if it had sunk into a dark void. This pitch-black demonic blade became the focal point of this dark void. This blade. The 9 Temples Saintess pupils constricted. She could feel that this blade was more than twice as strong as the previous one. In her shock, she could only use all of her strength to block, but in the end, the 9 Temples Saintess was once again sent flying. At the same time, blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth, and the divine power aura on her body was immediately weakened. Damn it, I lost nearly 20% of my divine power in this attack. 9 Temples Saintess' face was unsightly, but she was immediately enraged. Emperor Ming, Tai Ta, you forced me to do this. A shrill roar echoed in the void, and 9 Temples Saintess' eyes exploded. At the same time, an object faintly appeared between her eyebrows. It was a Cyan Divine lamp. The Cyan Divine lamp emitted an ancient and majestic aura. Sensing this aura, whether it was Emperor Ming, Iron Tower, or Jian Wushuang, who was far away from the battlefield, their pupils shrank. This is a supreme treasure. Jian Wushuang could not help clenching his hands. Yes, it was a supreme treasure. And judging from the aura, it was a soul attack type supreme treasure. This Nine Temples Saintess actually has a soul attack type true treasure. Underworld Emperor's expression changed. True treasures were something only Principal's masters were qualified to use. Although it was rumored that some immortal saints with great backgrounds or great opportunities also had true treasures, these immortal saints rarely used them even if they had one. Because true treasures were too precious, even Principal's masters would attach great importance to them. If it was not necessary, who would reveal that they had a true treasure that would cause countless great beings to be greedy, and they might even be targeted by Principal's masters. Ordinary true treasures were like that, and soul attack type true treasures were no less precious than domain type true treasures. Chapter 3262. The people who stood in the way. The soul attack of the Nine Temples Saintess is widely recognized as the number one among the immortal saints. Now that she has a soul attack treasure, I'm afraid that Emperor Ming and Tai Ta are in trouble, Jian Wushuang murmured. Indeed, after the Nine Temples Saintess took out her soul attack treasure, the expressions of Emperor Ming and Tai Ta had changed, especially the Underworld Emperor. Although he was strong, his soul defense was not that great. The soul attack of the Nine Temples Saintess was enough to affect him. But now, Underworld Emperor, you asked for it. The Nine Temples Saintess' face was as cold as ice. Green light burst out from the green lamp between her eyebrows. This green light was extremely dense, as if the energy in the sky was gathering crazily. Buzz. The dense green light finally gathered in the eyes of the Nine Temples Saintess, making her look like two giant green suns. Looking at these two green suns, everyone around the battlefield could feel the trembling of their souls. Almost everyone could feel the trembling of their souls. It's this move again. Jian Wushuang, who was in the distance, also narrowed his eyes. He knew this move. Nine Temples Saintess had once used it on him. It was her most powerful move. Once, Nine Temples Saintess used this move to kill an invincible saint. At that time, she had not used her soul attack supreme treasure. Now, with the addition of the soul attack supreme treasure, the two green suns became even more dazzling and terrifying. And these two green suns were targeted at the soul. Destroy. The Nine Temples Saintess gritted her teeth and spat out these two words. The two green suns in her eyes instantly turned into two green arcs of light and shot toward the Underworld Emperor. These two green arcs of light were too fast. Even the Underworld Emperor could not dodge them. Not good. The expression of the Underworld Emperor changed greatly. He immediately used his soul defense technique to the limit and tried his best to block these two green arcs of light. In the end, with a bang, the Underworld Emperor's body twitched slightly. His face turned pale, and the aura on his body became weak. However, although his aura was weak, it did not completely disappear. Clearly, under this attack, the Underworld Emperor's soul was severely injured, but it was not completely destroyed. The Underworld Emperor raised his head again. His eyes were filled with anger when he looked at the Nine Temples Saintess, but at the same time, there was a trace of fear. A serious injury to the soul was not a serious injury to the divine body. It only needed some God power to recover. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBox Novel. Thanks. It was extremely difficult to recover from a serious injury to the soul. Moreover, the soul was the foundation of a cultivator. If the soul was damaged, it would have a huge impact on strength. At least for the current Underworld Emperor, with a serious injury to the soul, he could only display 60% of his current strength. It could be said that he was quite miserable. As for Tai Ta, the Nine Temples Saintess did not use her strongest move to deal with him. After all, Tai Ta's soul defense was indestructible and much stronger than the Underworld Emperor. She could severely injure the Underworld Emperor's soul. However, it was very difficult to severely injure Tai Ta's soul. However, because of the soul attack treasure, the power of the three Cyclopes who had been fighting Tai Ta all this time instantly rose to a whole new level. Almost any one of the Cyclops could fight with Tai Ta head-on. The three of them joined hands and suppressed Tai Ta to an extremely miserable state. Underworld Emperor, do you still dare to take the Blood Wave token in my hand? The Nine Temples Saintess stared at Underworld Emperor with a cold expression. The expression on Underworld Emperor's face was uncertain. He had an incomparable desire for the Blood Wave token, especially now that he only had 3 Blood Wave tokens, including the one in the Nine Temples Saintess hand. However, the Nine Temples Saintess methods could not help but make him afraid. His soul was already heavily injured. If the Nine Temples Saintess used the same soul attack as before, his soul would be extremely weak. If the Nine Temples Saintess could use it a third time, his soul would be destroyed here. Nine Temples Saintess, you are ruthless. I underestimated you. The Underworld Emperor's voice was low. He then glanced at Tai Ta. Brother Tai Ta, stop. Tai Ta immediately stopped and came to the side of the Underworld Emperor. Humph, at least the two of you are tactful. The Nine Temples Saintess snorted. With a thought, the 3 Cyclopes dissipated. At the same time, the green lamp between her brows slowly disappeared. The two of you farewell, the Nine Temples Saintess said, and directly flew to the side. Emperor Ming and Tai Ta still stood there and had no intention of chasing after her. However, just as Nine Temples Saintess was about to leave, she immediately stopped. A figure had already blocked in front of Nine Temples Saintess. This figure was Jian Wushuang, who had been watching the battle. Nine Temples Saintess, where are you going in such a hurry? Jian Wushuang smiled. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Nine Temples Saintess glanced at Jian Wushuang and smiled coldly. If you could break my illusion from the beginning, you might be able to stop me from taking the Blood Wave token. But now that the Blood Wave token has fallen into my hands, even Emperor Ming and Tai Ta can't do anything to me. What can you do? You're right. You have a soul attack treasure, which even Emperor Ming is afraid of. But unfortunately, your soul attack is useless to me. Emperor Ming and Tai Ta can't take the Blood Wave token from you, but I might be able to. Jian Wushuang smiled strangely. Heavenly Sword Marquis, are you trying to waste time? Nine Temples Saintess did not take Jian Wushuang seriously at all. Waste time? I don't think so. Nine Temples Saintess, if I'm not mistaken, you don't have much divine power left, right? Jian Wushuang stared at Nine Temples Saintess. When you fought with Emperor Ming, you lost nearly 30% of your divine power after taking 2 blows from him. At the same time, you have to use your soul power to form 3 Cyclopes to fight Tai Ta. These 3 Cyclopes must have consumed a lot of your divine power. Most importantly, you used your soul attack supreme treasure to perform your most powerful move. After a pause, Jian Wushuang continued, I don't know how much divine power your most powerful move requires, but I do know that it takes a lot of divine power to use a supreme treasure. Supreme treasures were usually controlled by principal's masters. Although the immortal saint could use some of the power of a supreme treasure, it required a lot of divine power to activate it. Jian Wushuang knew this very well. After all, he had the supreme treasure, Icefire Swimming Dragon Ruler, which consumed a lot of divine power to activate the Icefire domain. However, Jian Wushuang was a perfect chaos god, so his divine power was boundless. Naturally, he did not care. But the Nine Temples Saintess was different. Chapter 3263. Killing the Nine Temples Saintess. It's not so easy for an immortal saint to activate the power of a supreme treasure. If I'm not wrong, you'll need to use at least 20% of your divine power to activate your soul attack supreme treasure. In addition to the divine power you used before, you only have 50% or even 40% of your divine power now, Jian Wushuang said. You're right. My divine power is less than half of what it was when I was at my peak, but so what? Do you think you can kill me just because I'm not at my peak? The Nine Temples Saintess sneered. She was confident in her strength. In her opinion, even if she only had 10% or 20% of her divine power left, it was still not enough for a mere heavenly sword Marquis to kill her. However, after hearing her words, Jian Wushuang revealed an extremely strange smile. If you were in your prime and had abundant divine power, I wouldn't be able to kill you. But now, you have less than 50% of your divine power left. It's easy for me to kill you. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. At the same time, he made his move. Buzz. Strong pressure from the life level began to press down without any warning. This pressure ignored the strength of both sides, and the realm level. This was the pressure from the most fundamental life level. This pressure was impossible to resist. Standing in front of Jian Wushuang, Nine Temples Saintess immediately felt the pressure from the life level. What? Nine Temples Saintess' eyes were wide open, and her beautiful face was almost disfigured at this moment. She looked at Jian Wushuang as if she saw the most powerful existence in her race. No, even more terrifying than that existence. Fear, trembling, fear. All kinds of emotions emerged in Nine Temples Saintess' mind. At this moment, Nine Temples Saintess was completely dumbfounded when Jian Wushuang pulled out the Blood Mountain sword and slowly slashed at her. She even forgot to defend herself. She just stood there in a daze and let Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword hit her. It should be known that Nine Temples Saintess was best at the soul, but she was not strong in the defense of the divine body. As Jian Wushuang said, if she was at her peak with her vast divine power, maybe she could survive the sword attack. However, she only had less than 50% of her divine power left. With Jian Wushuang's sword attack, less than 50% of her divine power was instantly destroyed. The Nine Temples Saintess did not even have time to scream before her divine body collapsed, and her voice was completely cut off. Dead, dead. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBox Novel. Thanks. The Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta, who had not left yet and had seen everything, were stunned. The experts who were fighting for the Bloodwave token, as well as the people who had rushed here during this period, were also stunned. They were all stunned. Some of them even opened their mouths wide. The Nine Temples Saintess, who was ranked in the top 5 on the True Saint list, had just revealed her soul attack treasure and fought with the Underworld Emperor. Judging from the scene, her true ranking on the True Saint list could actually rise to the 3rd place. However, such a peak expert, who even Underworld Emperor feared so much that he could only let her leave, was killed by Jian Wushuang in a short instant. Moreover, he had killed him head-on, without any other means. How is this possible? Impossible. This is impossible. Are we all under an illusion? Almost no one wanted to believe that what was happening was real. Emperor Ming was the first to react. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Emperor Ming looked at Jian Wushuang with unprecedented seriousness. What did he just do? He was nearby when Jian Wushuang performed that sword move. He also vaguely felt the pressure from the life level. The pressure made him want to kneel down in fear. Jian Wushuang relied on this method to kill Nine Temples Saintess without any struggle. Although Nine Temples Saintess has less than 50% of her divine power, she is still not someone who can be killed easily. Even Light King, who is ranked first on the True Saint list, could not kill Nine Temples Saintess in one move even if he used his strongest move without any defense. But Heavenly Sword Marquis did it. Underworld Emperor muttered with his eyes wide open. Then he looked at Tai Ta, who was also stunned. Brother Tai Ta, your defensive ability is recognized as the best among the immortal saints. Are you sure you can block the sword of Heavenly Sword Marquis? Emperor Ming asked. Tai Ta frowned and shook his head. I can't. Although I haven't experienced the power of that sword, I can see that it has completely surpassed the realm of the immortal saint. If that sword came at me directly, even if I tried my best to defend, my divine body would be destroyed by it. Of course, his sword can only make me lose 20 to 30% of my divine power, but it can't kill me in one strike. Tai Ta had absolute confidence in his defensive ability, but he did not have the confidence to face Jian Wushuang's attack. Even you can't block it. Emperor Ming could not help sighing. Without a doubt, in terms of attack power, the power of Heavenly Sword Marquis attack is above that of all the immortal saints. Even the most powerful move of Light King is far from being comparable to his. Such a move, without any accident, already has the ability to kill experts on the True Saint list in an instant. Inskill an expert on the True Saint list. Tai Ta's heart trembled, while Emperor Ming and Tai Ta were shocked by Jian Wushuang's skills. Jian Wushuang had already taken away the interspatial ring left behind by the Nine Temples Saintess, as well as the green lamp that had appeared between her eyebrows. With the death of the Nine Temples Saintess, it also appeared in the void and was naturally taken by Jian Wushuang. After collecting all the things, Jian Wushuang planned to leave. But at this time, the Underworld Emperor immediately called out to him. Heavenly Sword Marquis, the Underworld Emperor, and Tai Ta had already walked up. What's the matter? Do you want to take the Blood Wave token from me? Jian Wushuang asked playfully. The Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta looked at each other. Then the Underworld Emperor smiled bitterly and said, We really want the Blood Wave token, but we know we can't take it from you, so we came here to discuss it with you, Heavenly Sword Marquis. Discuss? How? Jian Wushuang seemed to be interested and asked casually. Chapter 3264. Favors from the Underworld Emperor _ Heavenly Sword Marquis. The Underworld Emperor looked over. I know that you've already obtained a Blood Wave token before, so even if you get another one now, it won't be of any use. Why don't you give me this Blood Wave token? As for the conditions, feel free to mention them. From the Underworld Emperor's expression, it could be seen that he really desired this Blood Wave token. He really wanted it very much. This was also very normal. After all, 8 Blood Wave tokens had already appeared, and all of them had fallen into the hands of others. There were only 2 chances for them to appear in the future. It was unknown if he would be able to encounter these 2 Blood Wave tokens. Moreover, during his fight with the Nine Temples Saintess, his soul had already been heavily injured by the Nine Temples Saintess. His own strength was greatly affected, and he was greatly weakened. The damage to his soul could not be repaired easily, even if the battle for the Blood Wave realm was over. Underworld Emperor estimated that his soul could not be completely repaired, and his battle strength could not be restored to its peak. This made him less confident in the fight for the Blood Wave token. Therefore, he was very eager to have the Blood Wave token in Jian Wushuang's hand. Hearing the words of the Underworld Emperor, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly and then smiled. There are too many people here. Let's find a place to talk. Okay. The eyes of the Underworld Emperor lit up. Jian Wushuang did not reject him on the spot, which meant that this matter was promising. Immediately, Jian Wushuang, the Underworld Emperor, and Tai Ta went to the void to the side. After they left, the experts who remained in the void were completely in an uproar. After all, a peak expert who ranked 5th on the True Saint list had just died here. Without a doubt, the death of the 9 Temples Saintess was enough to cause an unprecedented sensation in the Blood Wave realm. In a quiet void, Jian Wushuang, Emperor Ming, and Tai Ta stopped. "Emperor Ming, you can say whatever you want now," Jian Wushuang said with a smile. "I've said what I want to say. The Blood Wave token in your hand is very important to me. I want to get it no matter what price I have to pay." Underworld Emperor said, "Solemnly, Heavenly Sword Marquis, you can help me with the conditions. As long as I can meet them, I won't refuse." "Conditions?" Jian Wushuang shook his head. "To be honest, I don't have anything special that I need right now, so I can't offer any conditions. So you should see for yourself what methods you can use to move me." Jian Wushuang did not lack treasures. He had a lot of treasures. He even had a domain-type supreme treasure. And now that he had killed the 9 Temples Saintess, the green lamp of the 9 Temples Saintess had also fallen into his hands. This was also a soul attack-type supreme treasure. As for other things such as cultivation resources and natural treasures, they were also not attractive to him, not to mention Saint elixirs. At his level, he did not care about the number of Saint elixirs. Therefore, if Underworld Emperor wanted to impress him, he had to use some special items. Underworld Emperor also fell silent. Obviously, he knew that it was not so easy to impress Jian Wushuang. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, MyBox Novel. Thanks. He pondered for a moment before speaking. "I once obtained a token by chance. This token was left by an extremely powerful Principles Master. With this token, I can enter the mystic realm of heaven and earth and have a chance to receive the legacy of this Principles Master." "The True Eye Master?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had heard of the True Eye Master because he had interacted with a fallen Principles Master in the Temporal Temple, the secret skill left behind by the Principles Master in the true martial mystic realm had mentioned the True Eye Master. Just as Underworld Emperor had said, the True Eye Master was indeed an extremely powerful Principles Master. Although he could not be compared with Temple Master Bai Xing and the 3 Palace Masters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance among Principles Masters, he could be considered at the top level. The mystic realm left behind by such a Principles Master was indeed valuable. "Heavenly Sword Marquis, is this token enough to exchange for your Blood Wave token?" Emperor Ming asked. "Not enough." Jian Wushuang shook his head. "First of all, I don't know if the token in your hand was really left behind by the True Eye Master, and am not sure if this token can really allow me to enter the mystic realm created by the True Eye Master. Secondly, even if I use this token to enter the mystic realm created by the True Eye Master, I don't know what the True Eye Master left behind in the mystic realm. Most importantly, since the True Eye Master left the heaven and earth mystic realm to find a successor for himself, the successor he found is definitely the most suitable to become his disciple. I'm not sure if he'll be taken in by True Eye Master. After all, the True Eye Master cultivates the soul. To sum it up, this token is not very useful to me. At most, I can use this token to exchange for some other resources. How can it be worth a Blood Wave token that can enter the Blood Wave Palace and almost 99% can break through to become a Principles Master? Underworld Emperor frowned and did not refute Jian Wushuang's words. Indeed, the token left by the True Eye Master was very precious, but it was not as important as the Blood Wave token. Other than the token left by the True Eye Master, I don't have any other treasures. However, I can add one more favor to it. I can also spread this favor on my own initiative and let everyone in the Bloodwave realm witness it. With this favor, you can ask me to do something for you in the future, even if it's life-threatening. As long as it's not certain death, I'll agree. How about it? Oh, Jian Wushuang's expression changed. If the keepsake left by the true Eye Master was just a momentary hesitation, then Jian Wushuang was really tempted by the favor of the Underworld Emperor, although the favor of the Underworld Emperor was useless to him now. Once the Underworld Emperor got the Bloodwave token and entered the Bloodwave Palace, he would probably become a Principal's Master. Underworld Emperor was ranked 3rd on the True Saint list, and his battle strength could barely be compared with special life experts like Saint Devil Sun. Such an expert was extremely talented. Once he became a Principal's Master, he would definitely be an expert among Principal's Masters. He had a lot of room to grow. He might become a top Principal's Master in the future, and he might even have a chance to reach the level of Temple Master by Xing and the 3 Palace Masters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. When that time came, the value of this favor would be amazing. Jian Wushuang began to think. Chapter 32:65 agreed, seeing Jian Wushuang's silent expression. Underworld Emperor immediately became anxious. What? The token left by the true Eye Master and my favor are not worth a Bloodwave token? That's not true. Jian Wushuang smiled. Your 2 conditions have indeed moved me, but you also know that I come from the Temporal Temple, and there are 5 other people who came at the same time as me. 4 of them don't have a Bloodwave token. Now that there's an extra one, I naturally have to consider them. Well, wait for me. I'll send a message first. Okay. Underworld Emperor could only suppress his anxiety for now. Jian Wushuang took out a message token. This message token belonged to Temple Master Bai Xing. Among the immortal saints in the Temporal Temple, there were only a few who were qualified to have the message token and could directly communicate with Temple Master Bai Xing. However, Jian Wushuang was one of them. Temple Master Bai Xing. Jian Wushuang directly sent a message to Temple Master Bai Xing. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you should still be wandering in the Bloodwave realm, right? Why do you have the time to look for me? Temple Master Bai Xing quickly replied. Temple Master Bai Xing, it's like this. Jian Wushuang briefly recounted what had happened. You got 2 Bloodwave tokens at the same time? Even Temple Master Bai Xing was shocked to hear the news. Jian Wushuang had just killed the 9 Temples Saintess and obtained the 2nd Bloodwave token. Therefore, although Temple Master Bai Xing had been paying attention to what was happening in the Bloodwave realm, he had not received any news. I do have 2 Bloodwave tokens, but the problem is that Emperor Ming came to me and offered me a very good condition. He wants me to give him the extra Bloodwave token. I'm worried that Qian Hongzi and the others don't have the Bloodwave token yet, so I'm a little hesitant. So I came to ask you. Temple Master Bai Xing, Jian Wushuang said, Underworld Emperor? I've heard about him. He's ranked 3rd on the True Saint list and is quite talented. What did he offer to tempt you? Temple Master Bai Xing asked. One is a token left by the True Eye Master and a favor from Underworld Emperor. Jian Wushuang answered truthfully. Oh. Temple Master Bai Xing raised his eyebrows. The keepsake left by the True Eye Master is nothing. After all, the True Eye Master specializes in the soul. His keepsake is very useful to experts who specialize in the soul, but it's not very useful to you. However, the favor from the Underworld Emperor is worth fighting for. You want me to agree to the Underworld Emperor? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, Temple Master Bai Xing said. When the Underworld Emperor showed his super strength in the Bloodwave realm, the intelligence department of the Temporal Temple had already investigated his background. The result was that not only was the Underworld Emperor extremely talented and has great potential, but he also has an amazing master behind him. Master? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Yes, the master of Underworld Emperor is very powerful. He is a terrifying existence that is not to be trifled with. Even our temporal temple would not want to provoke him unless it was absolutely necessary. If you can get a favor from the Underworld Emperor, you will naturally form a relationship with his master. He might be of great help to you in the future. So, of course, you have to fight for him. Temple Master Bai Xing said. If I agree with him, then Qian Hongzi, Duanlang, and the others, Jian Wushuang frowned. Don't worry about them. Temple Master Bai Xing said directly, the opportunities in the Blood Wave realm belong to those who are capable. These 2 Blood Wave tokens were obtained by you alone, and with your own strength. They belong to you. You can deal with them however you want. Besides, it might not be a good thing for them if you give them the extra Blood Wave tokens for free. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novelful. Thanks. The path of cultivation is based on endless trials and tribulations. If they don't fight for the Blood Wave token and get it from you, no matter who gets it, it will have a great impact on their state of mind. In this situation, let's not talk about whether they can break through to become a principal's master through the opportunities in Blood Wave Temple, but even if they do, their achievements will be limited to this. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. He also agreed that it was not a chance that he had to risk his life for. Even if he got it, it might not be a good thing. I'll ask Han Yuan to tell Qian Hongzi, Duanlang, and the others. Now use this Blood Wave token to get the favor from Emperor Ming first. Temple Master Bai Xing said. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded, and then cut off the communication with Temple Master Bai Xing. In the void, Emperor Ming was waiting anxiously, and Tai Ta was standing beside him. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. With a flip of his hand, the Blood Wave token he got from the 9 temples Saintess appeared in his hand. Emperor Ming, give me the token left by the true Eye Master. With your help, the Blood Wave token is yours. Visit Readle, me for extra chapters. Upon hearing this, Underworld Emperor was overjoyed. He immediately took out the token left by the true Eye Master and handed it to Jian Wushuang. At the same time, he said, if it's a favor, Iron Tower will bear witness for now. Later, I'll immediately spread the word and let everyone in the Blood Wave realm know that I owe you a favor. There's no rush. The mighty Underworld Emperor, the 3rd-ranked genius on the true saint list, shouldn't go back on his words. Jian Wushuang smiled and handed the Blood Wave token to Underworld Emperor directly. After receiving it, the Underworld Emperor was so excited that his body was trembling. After a long while, he exhaled heavily and looked at Jian Wushuang again. Brother Heavenly Marquis, thank you so much. If you're not busy, how about we have a drink now? Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded with a smile. He could tell that the Underworld Emperor wanted to make friends with him because of his gratitude. Jian Wushuang was also very willing to make friends with a genius expert like Underworld Emperor and his powerful master. Soon, the 3 of them found a place and began to talk about making friends. While Jian Wushuang was talking with Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta, the death of 9 temples Saintess caused a huge wave in the Blood Wave realm. After all, the 9 temples Saintess was one of the top 5 super experts on the true saint list. Such an expert should be able to do whatever he wanted in the Blood Wave realm. Since the opening of the Blood Wave realm, many experts had died in the fight for the Blood Wave token. Even the invincible saint had died. However, there was not a single expert on the true saint list who had died. This was because it was almost impossible to kill an expert on the true saint list in the Bloodwave realm. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3266. Sensational. Underscore, even if the Light King personally took action, he would not be able to kill the experts on the True Saint list. Moreover, these experts on the True Saint list were not stupid. Once their lives were threatened, they would choose to hand over the Bloodwave token. After all, those who could be ranked on the True Saint list were not weak in talent. Even if they did not get the Bloodwave token this time, or the opportunities in the Bloodwave realm, they might have a chance to become a Principal's Master in the future. Therefore, a Bloodwave token was not worth their lives to fight for. On the contrary, many experts who were not qualified to be ranked on the True Saint list regarded the Bloodwave token as their only hope to become a Principal's Master. That was why they were desperate to fight for it. Even if they only had 20 to 30% of their godly power left, they were not willing to give up this opportunity. That was why they were killed. But this time, there was finally an expert on the True Saint list who died in the Bloodwave realm, and the one who died was the 9th-ranked 9-Temple Saintess. Thus, the entire Bloodwave realm was in an uproar. The 9th-ranked 9-Temple Saintess is dead. In a cave abode that was temporarily opened, the Light King, who was wearing a loose robe and carrying a cyan-colored long rod on his back, opened his eyes. A trace of shock appeared in his eyes. Light King, ranked first on the True Saint list, was widely recognized as the strongest among the immortal saints. He also believed that no one among the immortal saints could match him, especially in terms of offensive power. His stick skill combined 2 Principalists at the same time. It was enough to crush any immortal saint. But now, when he received the news, especially when he learned that the 9-Temple Saintess had nearly 50% of her divine power left, he was completely shocked when she was killed by Jian Wushuang with 1 sword strike. I know 9-Temple Saintess' strength very well. Although she specializes in the soul, her life-saving skills are not weak. Even I, when 9-Temple Saintess was unprepared, could only kill 20% to 30% of her divine power with my strongest strike. But Heavenly Sword Marquis destroyed 50% of her divine power with 1 strike. Is the sword strike performed by Heavenly Sword Marquis stronger than my strongest attack? At the thought of this, a huge wave rose in the bottom of Light King's heart, and at the same time, a shocking battle intent rose. Light King was an extremely arrogant person, and his arrogance was the result of him being in the strongest position. But now, Jian Wushuang's appearance made Light King feel a little threatened. He vaguely felt that Jian Wushuang was qualified to threaten his position. That was why he wanted to fight with Jian Wushuang. No rush. Heavenly Sword Marquis has already obtained the Bloodwave token. When the competition is over and the door of Bloodwave Temple is opened, I will meet him. Then I will have a good time with him. Light King murmured. He closed his eyes again. On an empty space, several figures gathered there. The atmosphere was a little gloomy. These people were from the Flame Saint realm. The leaders were Guzhenzi and calm. At this moment, oh my God, the 9-Temple Saintess is dead. She was killed by Heavenly Sword Marquis. A cry of surprise suddenly came out of a person's mouth. Instantly, the people of the Flame Saint realm were shocked. All of them revealed expressions of disbelief. The Heavenly Sword Marquis killed the 9-Temple Saintess. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website, My Novelful. Thanks. How is this possible? He is ranked 5th on the True Saint list. Even the Light King doesn't have such an ability, right? The people of the Flame Saint realm could not believe it was true. However, Guxinzi and Kong were relatively calm after they heard the news. While the others were shocked, Guxinzi and Kong looked at each other. Kong said directly, "He must have used that move again." "Yes." Guxinzi nodded slightly. "That terrifying sword, when I was on guard against it, directly slashed at me. It destroyed more than 80% of my divine power and could still kill Junior Brother Blue Eagle. The power of his is simply unbelievable, not to mention that the Nine Temples Saintess has already lost more than 50% of her divine power in the battle with the Underworld Emperor and Tai. Even if her divine power is at its peak, it is still very dangerous when she meets this heavenly sword Marquis. In terms of the strongest attack power, no one in the Bloodwave realm can compare to Heavenly Sword Marquis Sword. He can definitely kill an expert on the true saint list in an instant. The problem is, I don't know how many times Heavenly Sword Marquis can use that ultimate sword. If he can only use it once in a big battle and needs a long time to recover before he can use it a second time, that would be fine. However, if he can use it 2 or 3 times in a big battle, that would be truly terrifying. Visit Readel, me for extra chapters. If he can perform such a powerful sword attack 2 or 3 times at the same time, almost no one in the Bloodwave realm can survive it. At the very least, you and I can't do it, Kong exclaimed. I hope it belongs to the former. However, no matter what, Heavenly Sword Marquis is not someone we can deal with. Even if we add in the other 2 saint realms, we can't compete with him. We must be careful in the coming time. We must not let Heavenly Sword Marquis target us again. Guxinzi said in a deep voice. Kong also nodded solemnly. He knew very well that they had already suffered heavy losses when Jian Wushuang targeted them. If they did it again, few of them in the Flame Saint realm could survive. In a corner of the central area, the 5 people of the Temporal Temple gathered together. Oh my God! The Heavenly Marquis brother actually killed the 9 Temples Saintess. Hongzi widened his eyes in shock. Yes, he did. Although the 9 Temples Saintess wasn't in her peak state, she had nearly 50% of her divine power. However, she was killed by the Heavenly Marquis brother with 1 sword strike. Isn't the Heavenly Marquis brother too terrifying? Duan Lang exclaimed. They had also received the news. After receiving the news, they were all stunned. Di Hao, the Heavenly Sword Marquis, killed the 9 Temples Saintess. This method is even more impressive than yours. What are your thoughts at this moment? Qian Hongzi teased. I don't have any thoughts. It can only mean that he is powerful. Di Hao's expression was still cold. However, from his eyes, it could be seen that he was extremely shocked. Qian Hongzi curled his lips. Then he said, according to the information, after the Heavenly Sword Marquis killed the 9 Temples Saintess, the 9 Temples Saintess Soul Attack Supreme Treasure, and the Bloodwave token fell into his hands. The Heavenly Sword Marquis had 1 Bloodwave token, and now he has 2. One of them is useless against him. Duan Lang, Yu, and Fei Shui's eyes were red, but they soon smiled bitterly. They had all received a message from the Chaos Origin Master telling them that Jian Wushuang had exchanged the Bloodwave token for the favor of the Underworld Emperor. They had no choice but to accept it. After all, Jian Wushuang had obtained the Bloodwave token alone, so it was up to him to decide how to use it. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.